Hello, hello, hello! Happy Saturday, everybody. Oh man, what a week it's been, huh? Whew. We're in for a doozy tonight, folks. So I'm gonna charge up. You know, I'm gonna get in the zone. But I gotta say, I am greatly looking forward to talking about the Monsterverse. Something that I've been a massive fan since 2014. So today's stream is gonna it's gonna be fun. Hey Sean, how's it going, bud? It's good to see you. Yeah, before I get into today's topic, just so everyone knows, and you know, I'm fine with anybody else who joins later. This is still a chill stream. It's not like it has to be 100% Monsterverse talk. For example, a few hours ago, I saw Fantastic Four: First Steps, and I loved it. It's a great movie. Now, I like Marvel. I'm like into the MCU, or at least I used to be more into the MCU than I am now. But like, it's still like something that I not only reflect on fondly, like I was there for the very first Avengers movie. You know, my friends and I, we all cosplayed as our respective Avenger characters. I was, of course, the mighty Thor, and nothing but fond memories. That was a great day. And a lot of the MCU films since then, you know, there are, you know, several noteworthy entries. And I gotta say, like, despite everything, like, I know the MCU has been, well, I don't know if I would say it's been on the decline. It just hasn't quite measured up to the extraordinarily high expectation it's set for itself. But I gotta say, like, Fantastic Four was so good that I'm like, you know, I'm hopeful. I mean, similarly to how the new Superman movie makes me hopeful for the future of DC movies, Fantastic Four gives me hope for future Marvel movies too. I mean, the movie is really good. I love the casting, for one, is just so on the money. Everyone just felt like, I felt like I'd been following everyone for many years. Like, since the inception of the MCU, I feel like this family, the Fantastic Four, are all people I've known, that I can relate to, that I just feel like I've known them, and it just immediately I felt immersed. And I love the fact that the movie doesn't really waste time in taking up like 20 or 30 minutes dedicating the entire first act to like the superpower origin story, and then the next act where they have to learn how to use their powers, and then finally come together as a team to stop the villain or something. Like, almost immediately within the opening monologue, we hear about how they got their powers, came together, and from there, you know, when I saw the movie with one of my best friends, and the way we talked about it afterwards, it just felt like this movie hit the ground running. It really didn't feel so long. I mean, honestly, I checked my watch and I was amazed at how fast the movie went from beginning, middle to end. It was just really well paced. It kind of felt like, you know, just think about something from a movie that maybe, whether you liked it or not, it has this one particular scene or sequence that just makes it the core of the whole movie going experience. Now imagine an entire movie taking that concept and executing it, but for a feature-length film. And that's what the whole thing felt like. It was really good. I mean, I could go into more detail about it, but, you know, this is not a Fantastic Four stream. It is, you know, we're talking about the Monsterverse. But still, again, it's a overall chill stream. So, like, at any point, like, I might, you know, if anyone has any questions, or, you know, treat it kind of like an Ask Me Anything, or there's something you just want to get off your chest, feel free. Bring up the chat here. Okay, we got Sean. I love Marvel and DC. I can have peanut butter and chocolate at the same time. Yes. Marvel and DC, despite being, you know, comic book superhero incorporated, they have wildly different approaches, different aesthetics to the superhero genre. And there are major pros and cons to each, but I love them both. And give me Superman one day, and then I want to see Iron Man the next. How about some X-Men, and then a little bit of Green Lantern to, you know, bring things to an end, and maybe Deadpool for dessert. You know, it's just, I love this sort of stuff. Now, since we're talking about the Monsterverse, I will, of course, bring up superheroes again, due to the fact that we've seen quite a number of crossovers. But before I get into it, man, when it comes to Godzilla and crossovers as of late, it honestly does feel like, man, Godzilla. I thought about this meme earlier, and I might just make it because I think it's funny, but like. I feel like there should be a meme where the multiverse, it exists, and Godzilla, you know, you just take his face and put it over Michael Jordan's, and he's like, and I took that personally. Godzilla hates the multiverse. He seems to be, like, fueled by this sort of rage, this sort of need to just make Marvel, DC, Power Rangers, and I guess soon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Kaiju number 8. I'm sure there are so many other crossovers that I've already forgotten about, but like Godzilla is just bringing them down to heel, and it's just insane to me. Oh right, and Godzilla vs. Cthulhu, that happened too. Like, that should have been its own mini-series right there. Oh man, Sean, yeah. Speaking of Marvel, this whole Godzilla vs. Hulk thing is a little bit ridiculous. Hulk would just get angry enough to throw Godzilla into space. I mean, Hulk pulled a planet back together. Look, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm not. I had nothing to do with this. I mean, I made content where I talk about it because, again, I love me some fantasy fight versus battles, or death battle, or whatever the kids are calling it these days. Godzilla and Hulk are some of my favorite characters, and I definitely think about who'd win and stuff. I had a whole deciding the ultimate winner stream like a couple months back, and yeah, I think ultimately Hulk, you know, if you take the strongest Hulk versus the strongest Godzilla, Hulk would win. But then again, everything that we could think about that the Hulk has done was conceived by a writer, and now writers are conceiving of new ways for Godzilla to be even stronger. It's the never-ending story. Godzilla 93, what's up? Good to see you. Just giving it a few more minutes before I begin the ranking process, but yeah. I mean, Godzilla vs. Hulk just makes sense, though, and as much as I enjoyed the Godzilla vs. Marvel one-shots, and the Godzilla vs. Hulk story itself was extremely well written, and I'm kind of happy now in hindsight that it, like, didn't, like, revolve around just a big, good old-fashioned brawl, because it ultimately, I'd much rather have a good story versus just a mindless battle spectacle. But like, part of me still wants it, you know? And I guess we're going to see it in the 4th issue of Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe. So, hey, as far as things, you know, looking to look forward to, that, I guess, is on my to look forward list. What Godzilla variant are you excited to see in Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe? Okay, so it's so weird because on one hand, I guess the oh, great, my dog is barking. Not sure if anyone can hear that. All right, hang on. I gotta go help my doggy. Hang on, I'll be right back. All right, I'm expecting more barking throughout the day. The thing that's very interesting is I think the writer for Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe, he was answering some Ask Me Anything questions, but here's the thing. He mentioned, like, I don't think he understood one of the questions that was asked of him, but he did confirm a couple cool things, that Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe, it's like connected to the original 1970s Marvel Godzilla run, but that too is like that kind of acted as its own separate continuity from the Showa era Godzilla series, which he's also suggesting that that too was connected, or it might be. I mean, the confusion comes in the way that I think he was trying to say that his Godzilla vs. Hulk one-shot served as some sort of like continuation to the Showa era Godzilla films, in addition to the 1970 Marvel Godzilla run. But this new Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe shares some continuity with the 1970s run. But then they're not really using Showa Godzilla. It's more like a Heisei Godzilla. So, I don't know, guys. I mean, I don't think we're going to see the design radically change anyway. I think this is pretty much what's going to stick, but I could be mistaken. So I can't really say that I'm excited for whatever Godzilla variant. I think the one we got in the first issue is the one that we're going to stick with, and he's kind of like an amalgamation of, like, he looks Heisei, but seems to share history with, you know, previous Marvel Godzilla shenanigans. And Sean wrote, Space Godzilla versus Destroya talk win. Oh, well, I mean, can't give you an exact date for that, but maybe the next time we have a, maybe not a power ranking stream, but maybe something else. Sean, that's a good question, man. I mean, that one I know you're excited about, and Space Godzilla versus Destroya is something that I've never really talked at great length about it on like on this channel or anything, but yeah, I'm familiar with this matchup. It's one of my favorites. But if you want to know, in the meantime, if you're really definitely excited or interested in seeing Destroya fight Space Godzilla, check out my movie. My stop motion movie, Mechagodzilla versus Destroya versus Space Godzilla. It may have a long name to it, it's a pretty big ass title, but you know what? It's a big movie. It's got a lot of kaiju action for you. Shameless plug, I know, but I can't help myself. Godzilla 93 writes, have you heard that the Ninja Turtles are crossing over with Godzilla? Yes, I have, and that's quite the crossover. I have no idea what to expect from it. I might cover it when it comes out. We'll see. Alright, folks, let us begin with the topic at hand, ranking the Monsterverse. I'm going to be ranking both movies, TV shows, and comics from the Monsterverse. You might notice that I'm not including video games or like computer games, apps. I know there are a couple that have come out not too long ago, but I'm not really familiar with them, and I don't really think they, I don't know. When it comes to talking about movies, TV shows, and comics, I feel like video games are kind of like their own separate thing. And I'm not entirely sure on, well, I'm going to cover continuity here in a second, especially with the first entry that I'm going to be covering, but like, I don't know how the games really jive with that, right? So it's just a personal preference. Alright, keep the monsters roaring. Like, subscribe, and chip in with a membership or donation if you can. At the very least, guys, liking my videos, it tells the algorithm, hey, this Kaijutopia guy, he's pretty cool. So if you haven't yet, be sure to like this video. Appreciate it. Alright, so we have a grand total of 16 Monsterverse entries to cover in this ranking. And the bottom, from least favorite to my favorite, is the Godzilla Awakening graphic novel. I'm giving this a 1-star rating, 1 star out of 5. You know what? I gotta admit, when this graphic novel first came out, I was pretty excited, fresh. Like, it came out, I think, not too long after Godzilla 2014 was released. And I was so ecstatic because back then it was still very rare to have Godzilla like at all. I mean, in a previous stream we talked about the Godzilla drought period, and by drought we mean a lack of Godzilla, and Godzilla being in the movies or in a comic it still spikes my adrenaline. I'm super pumped because I love me Godzilla. But at the same time, when I picked this up and started reading it, I found it very cumbersome. It was confusing. And this is no, like, I'm not trying, throughout this entire ranking system, I want everybody to understand. I mean no disrespect to the writers, to the illustrators. I mean, they are way better at this than I will ever be. So all I can do is just express myself and my thoughts here. And for me, while I do think like the art's pretty cool. I enjoy it. I think the design for Godzilla and his new kaiju antagonist, the Shinomura, which is something I'll get into momentarily, I enjoyed that. And there are some elements of the story with the humans that I thought was pretty interesting. But ultimately, the whole comic is very confusing. Like, there are times where I'm wondering what the hell is happening, even though there's dialogue here and maybe I can make sense here and there of certain things, but I'm also kind of like, there's something about the way you know, the comic panels came across that I just found myself not realizing or not comprehending just what the hell's going on. You know, when you pick up a comic or you pick up, you know, you can, like, I could go look at Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe or some of the later Monsterverse entries we're going to be seeing here. You go from page 1, page 2, page 3, there's a nice flow, you kind of, you get it. But there are times where just when I feel like I understand what's happening in this comic, it throws me for a loop. I suddenly turn the page and here's Godzilla and the Shinomura fighting, but it's angled in a way that I have no idea what's going on. I mean, look at this image on the left side here. Now, the Earth is at the bottom where it usually is, but Godzilla looks like he just, what, did he jump off the top of a mountain and come in, like, parachute? I don't know. So there are things confusing about this comic. You know, Godzilla needs to stop it or it's going to consume so much radiation, it's going to, like, consume the planet. That's pretty awesome. So overall, I give it 1 star because, well, the art's good, the story at times is it does bring some interesting ideas to the Monsterverse, but nowadays I'm not even sure if this is considered canon. I don't even know if it's actually if we went step by step, especially when comparing to where the Monsterverse is nowadays. I feel like a lot of especially with the new show Monarch Legacy of Monsters, I feel like that has almost debunked most of the events that occurred in this comic. So, you know, I give it 1 star. Let's see. Sean mentioned Death Battle is doing Godzilla vs. Hulk. When that video drops, I'm staying off Goji Twitter for a week. You know, I generally, you know, I like Death Battle. I feel like our methods are pretty comparable. And I do love and respect the fact that they not only take the time, the due diligence of comparing the two characters that are fighting, going over their feats, strengths, abilities, their histories, and what have you, but then making a cool animation of the battle. That's top-notch stuff. But yeah, I hear you. It's gonna bring out a lot of fanboys, Godzilla fanboys, Hulk fanboys. Just it's gonna be a dark day. Do you think Scar King will show up in the Monsterverse versus DC comic? Yeah, I actually think so. I mean, I don't see why they... I mean, spoiler alert, but currently Superman and Lex Luthor are trapped in the Hollow Earth, and they were just confronted by Scar King's great apes. Like we can even recognize some of them from the Godzilla Kong New Empire movie. So yeah, 100%. And we should be getting King Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra too. So we went from no Godzilla to so much of him, and I loved it. Yeah, this is regarding the Godzilla drought I mentioned. Yeah. So yeah, I think if Godzilla Awakening, if you went to me back when Godzilla Awakening first came out and asked me how would I rate it, I'd probably give it like 2 or 3 stars. Definitely a higher rating then than I am now, but yeah. Okay. So, number 15 on this list is Skull Island, The Birth of Kong. And this is another one of those entries where I personally think while the story itself isn't bad, it does touch upon some interesting concepts, namely dealing with the birth of Kong, his origin story, as it were. I do find the story to be underwhelming. Most of the human characters are boring. I didn't really feel anything for them whatsoever. I honestly, I was here for Kong. And yeah, Kong, absolutely, when you get his backstory and discover that Kong is basically like Batman of the Monsterverse. Dude lost his parents. He almost, for most of his life believed he was the only last surviving member of his race. Yeah, it's a truly tragic backstory, and you feel for him. There's a lot of shit that goes down. I'll just be blunt. But man, I gotta, I'm trying to speed up here, at least for the first bottom entries here, because, there's more that I'm going to go into detail later. But I will say, in this comic's defense, the art is magnificent. And it's kind of the reason why I gave it like 1.5 stars, because of the fact that the art is just so damn good. So in fairness, like, you could just as well pick up this book and maybe you're not interested in reading it, although I still highly think you should, regardless of what I believe. I think you should read these stories and come to your own conclusions. I think it's really just cool to also be able to open up a book anywhere and just marvel at the art. It's really good. Oh, Godzilla 93 asks a good question. Will you do a video on the IDW trilogy? Kingdom of Monsters, Godzilla Ongoing, and Rulers of the Earth. I have been asked this before. And, I would like to. And I'm definitely thinking about doing it maybe someday. The problem is for me, it's just a whole lot of prep. And I've been debating about whether or not I should like maybe I should just like clump the first 5 issues together for a single video, but we'll see. And yeah, seeing the death of the Kongs is just tragic. Yeah, I mean, unlike Godzilla Awakening, I do think there's more, like, the Birth of Kong does offer more to the Monsterverse lore. Like, it does expand on Kong's origin, his history. But, you know, again, it's just kind of like, it feels like, okay, but there's also a bunch of humans here that I don't really feel anything for, and I kind of, as I'll touch upon later, I'm not the kind of guy who thinks there should be a movie where it's just all Godzilla, all monsters. Sure, I'd watch it, but I strongly, profusely disagree with the people that believe that, oh, we're not here for the humans, we're here for the monsters. I'm here for both, because to me, the humans and the monsters are the characters, and I want to, they're vital. They are instrumental to the whole viewing experience. So, oh yeah, Sean does mention the Scar King apes are called the Red Stripes. It's confirmed in the official novelization. Thank you, Sean. All right, so the next entry here, number 14, is Monsterverse Declassified. This is a recent one, if I'm not mistaken, and it does cover a couple interesting Monsterverse Titans. I liked the idea behind this, but ultimately I'm giving this 2 stars out of 5. So first, let's go over some of the good. The Behemoth entry kind of continues where Behemoth left off in Godzilla Dominion. The poor guy got his horn broken by Amhulak. I think I'm saying his name right. Amhulak is this scary ass looking Titan, and he was about to kill Behemoth, but then Godzilla intervened, and this is what happened after that. And for what it's worth, I do think this was a pretty good, solid entry. It does have, you know, it does have good interesting human involvement, and Behemoth itself is still one of those Titans with well, almost immediately you look at his design, this guy is just awesome. But I also kind of feel like this story did expand more on the Behemoth, sort of like what's his place, what's his role in the Monsterverse. And it seems to be kind of a bit of a healer, like he is responsible for restoring the rainforest. And I believe this is something that, you know, I would like to see the Behemoth not only in more Monsterverse related comics, but I want to see him show up in the movies again. I want to see him and Kong, for example, side by side. Come on, some mammal kaiju respect here. Sean, feel free to send that to me over Discord. Of course, I'd love to read it. But then we get to another entry in this comic that I gotta admit I'm a little bit I'm a little bit on the fence here. Let me explain. On one hand, we have this new terrifying Titan called Abaddon, this ghoulish, freaky, demonic looking spider, and when you start reading Abaddon's story, it's all black and white, which adds more to the mystique. It adds more to this kind of like, I kind of felt like at times I was reading a H.P. Lovecraft story. This is, you know, it feels like this confirms that kaiju and horror are a great mix. And I really liked learning more about Abaddon. I do think Abaddon, I hope, does make a future appearance in a Monsterverse film or maybe one of the TV shows, like Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2, fingers crossed, that would be cool. But then I felt like the story lagged. Like, I was 2 or 3 pages in and I thought, this is good, it feels like it's about to wrap up. I mean, it kind of got everything across. Like, apparently Abaddon is the source of all spiders, and, you know, that fear of arachnophobia is it comes from her, and then there are other interesting things about her, like how the other Titans are afraid of her too. Like, I totally believe it, but then the story just kind of felt like, oh yeah, we still have 5 more pages, and at that point it just started dragging for me. So good entry until it starts getting a bit repetitive, but the art, of course, is fantastic. And the last thing that I really liked about this was getting into my girl Tiamat. Tiamat is probably one of the coolest additions to not only the Monsterverse comic book series, but just the fact that she started as a comic book character, and then she had a rather memorable presence in one of the movies. So, and I did like this story as well. It kind of leaves room for Tiamat's return someday, and maybe kind of helps give a glimpse into what future Monsterverse movie storylines might be like. But overall, though, it's not noteworthy. It's not like the entire Monsterverse declassified graphic novel as a whole. Like, every single I neglected to mention some of the other storylines we got. Like, the one with Doug was cute. Doug is a pretty cool character if you don't know him, but I'm also kind of like not like falling heads over heels for him. He's kind of more of like a, clearly this guy has a fan base, or he has, you know, he's achieved way more attention than I'm sure his creators originally imagined, but he just, you know, he's cool, but I'm also not like, I'm gonna wear a I'm with Doug t-shirt or anything, I guess. So yeah, just giving it 2 stars. I'm not really, as far as you know, its place in the Monsterverse, I think it provides some interesting elements, and I like how expanded some of the Titans themselves. Nice to see, you know, what they've been up to, but nothing too noteworthy, and it might be due to the fact that neither Godzilla nor Kong are part of it. So, and Godzilla and Kong are like integral to the Monsterverse at this point, as I'll get into more detail later. Friendly reminder, like, subscribe, and toss some coins to your monster. Godzilla needs snacks. Godzilla 93 asks, you think we'll hopefully see some of the other monsters we haven't seen from King of the Monsters in either Supernova or in future projects? I'm really hoping we do. Like, you mentioned Kamazotz and Abaddon. I would love to see these guys. Kamazotz is great. We're gonna... Oh yeah, he's coming up. But, yeah, I do hope, like, Behemoth shows up as well. Like, it seems such, like, a waste not to have them appear. I mean, I'm not expecting them to be, like, they're going to be part of the final battle, or they're you know, I'm not even expecting something like what happened between Godzilla and Scylla in like where was it, in Italy. I'm perfectly fine with just seeing them show up maybe for 20 or 30 seconds, kind of like getting a Monster Island version for the Monsterverse. Like, this is where all the Titans are kind of now living, and this is how they interact or something. I mean, I want to see more Rodan, which again I'll get into later, but like, man, I would love to see more of these guys. But also budget, it's expensive, and you can only do so much. So maybe we'll see them in, again, Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Number 13, Godzilla Aftershock. I'm giving this 2.5 stars out of 5. So first off, I really do enjoy some of the backstory here. This comic does give us some interesting exposition on some of the human characters that we'll eventually see in Godzilla King of the Monsters. It has a whole lot of interesting subplots, but I don't feel like they necessarily pay off, especially since they tend to hinge on Godzilla King of the Monsters, and for me, I prefer. I don't mind, like, I do love it, in fact, when there's like a, maybe cinematic universe isn't the right terminology here, but I do like it when stories across different mediums connect, like there's some sort of overarching plot, or the events of, that play out in this movie also had ramifications in the TV show and the comics, etc. But I don't like it when it affects the story. Like, as I'll talk about another Monsterverse entry soon, I don't like it when there are cliffhangers where that are never resolved. I don't like it when there are certain plot elements or subplots or characters that they seem to be building towards something, kind of hoping that, well, they show up in the next Monsterverse movie, and if that does well, then maybe their story can be continued down the line. Like, I kind of want more of a sense of closure. And finding out that in this case, I love the fact that this graphic novel expanded more on the Mutos. I mean, I love Muto Prime. I'm not entirely sold on its face, but I love the idea that the Mutos eventually would evolve after, like, entering in a death match with like a battle royal to see who's the strongest, who's the fittest, and then the Jinshi Mushi would emerge, and from there the species continue, but only because the strongest member of their kind, is the spreader, right? Is the super spreader, the one that now will become the main progenitor. There are some other parts of this that I thought were a bit boring. Now, I love me some jargon. I like it when they get more into the, like, when they talk about the Muto Prime and its entire backstory with Godzilla's species. I mean, that was pretty cool. But, like, I also feel like there are some things that are missing. Like, I would have been more in favor of maybe even following some early humans, like getting an entire graphic novel dedicated just to the history between Godzilla and the Mutos. To me, is a bit more interesting, in how the Mutos might have been responsible for for past civilizations, like suddenly going down, like missing, being like wiped off the face of the earth overnight, mysteriously, I should say, and it's because of the Mutos. So, as much as I love the Muto Prime, and again, I really want to, like, we were talking about Kamazotz and Abaddon and Behemoth hopefully coming back, I want to see the Muto Prime, or maybe a mutation of it in a future Monsterverse film. But overall, like, despite everything, like, just being honest, like, as much as, like, I love some of the imagery and I love some of the cool new tidbits of info, like, it does expand on the lore, I don't really see it as something that, like, it doesn't really feel like it needed to be made, if that makes sense. Again, maybe it's, maybe it's just me. Like, obviously, if you love this graphic novel, if you love this story, all the more power to you. For me, it just doesn't feel like a lot of the interesting ideas it proposes, it doesn't feel like there's any real payoff near the end. I feel like it's just one of those stories that they're meant to be sort of like companions to the movies, but then it's like, well, what about your own autonomy? What about your own story? Like, what like, those movies are not companions to the comic, but the comics are companion to the movies. And while I see the utility in that and the appeal, I'm also kind of like, okay, well, the comic should also try and be its own thing too. Oh, Sean, you're sharing something really cool here. One thing some people don't know is Behemoth, the Behemoth design, is also inspired by a sloth, but not a normal sloth, but a prehistoric sloth. Take a look at Behemoth's claws, then search up prehistoric sloth claws. This is really good tidbit of information. Thank you, Sean. I agree with Godzilla 93. Muto Prime is a solid villain. Yep, absolutely. I want to see more of Muto Prime in the future. Again, might want to make the face look less, well, it's a bit too anthropomorphic for my taste. Kind of, I could see some human expression in there, and I'd prefer not to. So speaking of yet another comic companion to a movie, we have Godzilla Kong the Hunted. Kind of serves as a sort of prequel of sorts to Godzilla Kong the New Empire. And here's the good. Its main antagonist is someone who we would later go on to find out that not only is he like this billionaire titan hunter who's built his own badass looking mech, which is cool, but you know, you get some good backstory. You find out he lost his family during the first 2014 Titan attack, or G-Day, where the Mutos came to San Francisco and leveled the place. As far as backstories go and motivations, you know, why he hates the Titans and there's this, I don't include it, but you know, in the comic itself, like he has an entire like menagerie of Titans he's hunted, or other monsters. Maybe they're not classified as Titans, but you know, it's a lot of Easter eggs. I've covered this specific entry on the channel. If you would like a full breakdown, you can go find that. It's, you know, I think it's worth a watch. But the story itself, it's worth a read. I mean, the art is phenomenal. The characters are actually, you know, really cool. I mean, Bernie from Godzilla Kong, he shows up, and you know, I got it. Major credit to Bernie as a character, because every time it came to reading his thought bubbles or his dialogue, I could hear his voice, man. It was feels like I could, you know, this was actually something he would legitimately say. And if memory serves, the writer Brian Buccellato, he not only wrote this, but he would go on to write Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. So, you know, again, credit to the writer. This actually has a pretty good story, but what I don't like about it is, of course, it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger for Godzilla's side of events. Like, as far as we're concerned, as soon as he hunts Scylla to Italy and they are getting ready for their face-off, you know, it goes to be continued in the movie in question. And again, this is just a pet peeve. It might not sound like much, but to me it's like, man, I would have really liked to have seen more resolution for Godzilla in this comic, as opposed to be continued, stop what you're doing and go watch the movie. And it's like, but I'm halfway through the comic, and now I gotta like wait. If I'm interested in only this, you want me to stop what I'm doing and go watch that? Okay. And also, well, and this is still an issue with the comics, and it might be unavoidable, but you know, just even though they are companions to the movies are not companions to the comics. And I don't really think the movies, even like the people who write and make the movies themselves, I don't think they prioritize the comics all that much, which is always why it's kind of rough when it comes to not only getting into specifics like talking about what's canon or what's happening in the Monsterverse. Are the comics legitimate? That sort of thing. It would be nice if maybe somebody mentioned like some line of dialogue in one of the Monarch facilities that, oh yeah, hey, remember that crazy billionaire Titan hunter guy? Yeah, the guy that made that giant mech? Oh yeah. But then again, I wouldn't really want that either, because again, I'm more of the standalone, tell a self-contained story. It's cool if it has, you know, if it shares continuity with something, but would that really add to the story? No. well, the reverse is also true. I kind of feel like the comics should also try to be their own thing too. Still, gotta make it very clear. Despite whatever ratings I give any of these, I still love picking them up and reading them. And God, the art for this is just fantastic. Cloud9, good to see you. Do you think that Legendary should have explored more monsters in their own standalone films, but also leading to a versus film, etc., and grand finale with a Titan Wars or Destroy All Monsters film? Depends largely on what we mean and what sort of monsters are getting their own standalone. Now, there's a huge difference between, sure, I would have loved to have gotten a Mothra solo Monsterverse film or a Rodan solo Monsterverse film. Now, would that have actually been realistic from a studio perspective? Like, are either of those characters, do they have much clout or pull with mainstream audiences to pick, to actually make a profit? Because these movies are expensive to produce. But I'm just going to try and think about what I have personally liked that. Yes, I especially Rodan. Rodan absolutely could be its own solo film. I could see so much that they could explore with that. And it could probably be a decent hit if they find, the right filmmaker with a pretty cool story behind it. Which, again, in order to make it good, you want it to be, you want strong human characters, strong human involvement. Yeah. But, yeah, I would have liked that. And maybe, I guess, furthermore, with what Cloud9 is saying here, it kind of sounds like it's following the Marvel formula. Phase 1 of the MCU, you have a bunch of these standalone or maybe like solid entries with each superhero, their origin story and whatever, and then it all culminates in a big, the superhero example, a big team up, whereas here it could just be an all-out destroy all monsters free-for-all. That would have been great. That would have been cool. But I don't think it was ever really feasible. It didn't seem to be realistic. I mean, I've seen the memes or, the coming up in 2027 Rodan standalone, and then the next Varen the Unbelievable, Mothra, Queen of the Monsters. I just don't think it's a lot to expect from a big Hollywood production. I could see Toho absolutely making another Rodan movie or a Mothra movie somewhere down the line, but I just can't see that happening for the Monsterverse. Especially since they seem to be very fickle about wanting to make Godzilla like a independent Godzilla movie, or maybe something where it's Monsterverse Godzilla, but Kong is not really part of the story. It seems like right now the studio executives, the studio itself, rightfully are very they're not exactly optimistic about Godzilla alone being enough to, headline. You need both Godzilla and Kong because that's what's putting butts in the seats. Alright, so number 11 on my ranking is Godzilla Fight or Flight. I'm giving it 3 stars. So this is a rather unique entry. I think you could find it in the big Legends of the Monsterverse graphic novel. It's an exclusive for that. And if memory serves, this was kind of like a Kickstarter. Now, I'm not going to launch into a rant, although saying that now, you might be able to interpret what I might think about this. But when major companies want their fans, their customers, to fund projects that then become, just exclusive for those specific, I guess, for the people who help funded it, and then it just becomes all that more difficult to find it for, on a comic book stand, because now it's either an exclusive for just Kickstarter investors, or maybe it's just something that you can only find in a massive compilation of a bunch of graphic novels that you've already bought separately, but now, in order to read this story, you gotta pay $50 for the whole thing for something you already have. It kind of, it rubs me the wrong way, but that does not affect my appreciation for this whatsoever. This is actually a pretty solid entry, and it goes more into at times it kind of does feel like it's its own thing. The story it sums up the events of Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla King of the Monsters, and it leads up to Godzilla vs. Kong, namely at the start of Godzilla vs. Kong, when Godzilla is searching for Mechagodzilla, so he attacks, he attacks that Apex Cybernetics plant in Florida. Yeah, and it leads up to that when we follow some of the main characters who are part of the pilots who are sent to try and stop Godzilla, but then, they kind of, when you're in their minds and they're thinking about Godzilla's place in the great scheme of things, realizing, he's kind of like this great protector. He, if Godzilla thinks there's something wrong, who are we really to judge? Who are we to intervene? I mean, he's been doing this for like millions of years. It really does touch him on some really great, interesting moments here and there. And while I'm happy by the fact that it does feel like it does wrap things up. It doesn't even though it does end with Godzilla still searching for Mechagodzilla, the ghost of King Ghidorah. One thing that I will say that makes this entry stand apart from all the others is how it ties up loose ends. I don't feel like the characters got the short end of the stick. I feel like there's resolution to the characters involved. So it's still pretty great. I mean, I love this. I mean, just take a look at the pilot here, G-Stan. That's hilarious. And how they're thinking, I know in my heart we're on the same side. This sort of thing, I really love more stories centered around this, where we get to see more of how the humans start seeing Godzilla as he's not only the protector of the planet or the king of the monsters. You're literally looking at something that is unquestionably the god king of the planet. You're looking at something that is older than recorded history. You're looking at something that, and I'm going to get into more of this when I start talking about Godzilla Dominion, but you're literally locking eyes, like this pilot is in this slideshow here, with something that whose experience is so vast, unfathomable, but also it seems to be relatively benign. It's not interested in hurting you. It's not interested in, threatening the human race. But then again, who knows how long that might last. But this is still something that you can't help but feel like it's Godzilla's world. He knows better. So I like how this comic played with that. And this is also such a... the art. The art. I'm going to let this soak in for a second. Godzilla 93, thank you so much for being here. It was good to see you, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, bud. Gojira 2019. Do you think that Matt, the director of the Fantastic Four, was rage baiting by saying Galactus would win against Godzilla easy? My opinion, absolutely not. Rule of thumb whenever it comes to filmmakers, storytellers, and the whole power ranking versus side of a public discourse, or mainly the internet, filmmakers don't give a shit about any of this. They don't care. It's very to them, there are so many different tiers when it comes to who wins in a fight between two imaginary characters. like scratching at the surface are the kind of people that might shrug and either think that's really that's your question, and they might randomly pick a character. In this case, he's gonna pick Galactus because that's the character from the movie that he helped make. If the director was making a Godzilla movie, he would have said Godzilla could beat Galactus. It's not really something that I'm sure he thought much about. So yeah, I don't think he rage baited at all. I think to him, this is just part of the whole press tour anyway. Like, you're in that mindset where you're like, just anything you say, any sort of answer you're giving, you want it to be like you're trying to speak positively about the thing that you're trying to, sell, that you're trying to pitch to the world to go see. Galactus eats Godzilla, end of discussion. Pretty much, yeah. Most of the time, yeah. That might change and Godzilla destroys the Marvel Universe, but yeah, Galactus is just on a much higher, way higher scale. There are some Godzillas that I would argue that could give that could give Galactus a pretty good fight, depending on whether he's well fed or not. And I could say in the movie itself, if you had, I might do a stream someday where I just go over who wins Godzilla versus Galactus and pit different variants against each other. You could argue that Godzilla from the legendary, from the Monsterverse, could beat Galactus from the Fantastic Four movie. Yeah, you could make that case. I'm a little bit... The specifics require a bit more research, but yeah, I could see that playing out, and I wouldn't, like... Yeah, I really wouldn't have a problem with that sort of verdict. But Galactus from the comics, like from what we've seen, especially when he's well-fed and when he's cutting loose, not holding back. No, Godzilla, if anything, Galactus would do to Godzilla with what he did with Ghidorah. He might go, okay, I'm gonna make you my herald. Imagine Godzilla as Galactus's herald. Now that's a cool thought. As always the case when it comes to my streams or the topics at hand, agree or disagree, leave a comment. I love it when people just express themselves. I do not see myself as, I don't think I'm special. I don't think I am like the voice of all things Godzilla or whatever. I'm just a dude who's expressing himself. And obviously if I say something that you're like, yeah, I'm not so sure about that, or here's what I think, please feel free, share. I love to hear from you guys. For example, Gojira 2019 says Godzilla wins. Just my opinion. Cool. I love Godzilla. And Godzilla winning, cool. And then, welcome. You said hi. Good to see you. And now you're asking, what about the games? So, at the very beginning, before I started this stream, I did mention this is just exclusively for movies, TV shows, and comics. I'm not really that familiar with the games, hence why I'm not really including them, but also because, honestly, and I kind of have this problem with some of the comics too, so this could be a red flag, but I'm not exactly sure if they're part of the main Monsterverse continuity, but then again, I do have some other entries here that are absolutely not part of the Monsterverse continuity, so we're just gonna go with the fact that I haven't played them, so I can't really rank or judge them. That's a better answer. But if you recommend them, if you played them and you think they're cool, like, let me know. Perhaps you could share what you thought, what you liked or disliked about them, and I'll be more than happy to read the comment and gauge what you guys think. But now we've reached the top 10. Number 10, Kingdom Kong, giving this a 3 out of 5 rating. First, Kong is pretty awesome in this. I mean, we're still on Skull Island. This takes place roughly before the events of Godzilla vs. Kong, but this does happen after Godzilla King of the Monsters. And one of the main things, and I'm going to talk about him now, Kamazotz is such a great Titan antagonist. For starters, this guy is scary, he's frightening, like everything about him just makes me super, like, I just feel unsettled. When we find out that Kamazotz, like, literally, like, so during King Ghidorah's attack on the world, he created a superstorm, like, on the eastern seaboard. But apparently he was also creating storms throughout the planet, and one of them was not that far from Skull Island, and Kamazotz actually stole it. Like, he totally took the reins of this storm, of the cyclone, and brought it to Skull Island, and that's the reason why Skull Island had to eventually be evacuated. So that's just scratching at the surface, though. Kamazotz is, like, seen as a sort of, like, Lord of Darkness. This guy is super bad. He is a destroyer. He is by no means a good Titan. I could actually have seen him joining forces with King Ghidorah, and, God, I would love to see what it would have been like if all these evil Titans met up around the same time with no Godzilla or Kong to stop them. Like, can you imagine Kamazotz meeting Scar King? Maybe they have. That would be a cool story in itself. Ooh. Gonna take a moment. Hang on. Gotta hydrate. Gojira 2019 is asking, do you think Ultima's true form or Godzilla in Hell could put up a good fight? I'm assuming against, do you mean like against each other? Like, would it be a good fight if Ultima's true form fought Godzilla in Hell? I mean, I'd imagine it would be interesting. Ultima's true form is kind of one of those, like, I pretty much concede that it's probably the most powerful version of Godzilla ever, but I don't really include him in my Godzilla power rankings because of the fact that we don't really know what it looks like. It's like a higher dimensional being, and Godzilla as we know him in Godzilla Singular Point is kind of like a form he takes in order to adapt to the laws of physics in our universe, and then, you know, he uses the red dust archetype to rewrite it so that he could take it over. And then Godzilla from Godzilla in Hell is a pretty, for the longest time I saw him as the most powerful Godzilla, but nowadays, you know, there are a number of new entries. It's why I need to do a Godzilla power ranking 2.0 stream, because there's a lot. There's some new contenders to the throne for sure. But as for a good fight, you know, if Ultima's true form is really what we think he is, or what's implied, I don't think it would be much of a fight at all. But then again, talking about Godzilla in Hell and what's his power level tends to, shenanigans come into play, because on one hand, when it comes to Godzilla in Hell, it's a bit hard to gauge, you know, feat-wise, because Godzilla in Hell, I believe, had like 6 riders. So it's kind of like a little bit all over the place. Like the 3rd issue implies but doesn't show that this Godzilla is supposed to be like way more powerful than what we see him do on the comic panel. But like, it's also, there's been like some statements made by the authors, subsequently in later years, suggesting that not everything they planned, or they had some story pitches or concept art that of course didn't make the final cut, that would absolutely have made him way more powerful. So I'd have to dedicate a whole stream or session to just talking about this in general, but it does tend to ruffle feathers. It does tend to kind of like we all have our own unique ways of gauging power or who's the strongest or who'd win. And yeah, that's something that I can't really go into way more at this time, but it's definitely something that I'm interested in doing at a later time. So I hope that's a satisfying response. Garrett, what's up? Hey, Kaijutopia just bought the new Godzilla vs. Marvel comics from GalaxyCon Raleigh, North Carolina yesterday. That's cool. I'm ready to read these in a heartbeat. Dude, I'm so happy. That's awesome. I hope you like them, Garrett, and let me know what you think about them. Adnan asks, Super Godzilla vs. Godzilla Earth. Okay, well, I mean, Super Godzilla is a bit rough because it's a video game, and you might notice in my Godzilla power ranking videos, or maybe you haven't. It's okay if you haven't seen them. They're long and likely very boring. But I don't really include video game variants of Godzilla because I don't like their feats, their accomplishments are less about what that character does in the story, and it's more it hinges more on the playing ability of the player, if that makes sense. It's just my own little kind of approach to it, because you could just as well play like Super Godzilla. Like when I first played that game, I was so bad at it. Like I couldn't even get past Biollante. Yeah, not exactly the best player, and I felt so bad about it because I love Godzilla, but I want him to win, but I can't. So, like, if I were to be like, I'm basing Super Godzilla entirely off of my poor playing skills, seems to be a disservice to the Super Godzilla character. But yeah. Evolved Godzilla 2024, good to see you here. Godzilla in Hell is and always will be the strongest Godzilla. That's a nice opinion. And of course I have no trouble with that opinion. As of right now, I would disagree, but you're more than welcome to share why you think so, and we'll go from there. I should probably first, before reading more of these, finish this part. So, real quick, in closing with Kingdom Kong, I do like the fact that one of the main characters we follow, she was a fighter jet pilot and still is, but she suffers from major PTSD because during King Ghidorah's call to arms, Kamazotz was attacking, and she lost her entire squadron. She was confronted by this thing that's like literally the kind of thing that nightmares have nightmares about. And it left her with major PTSD, so now she has to then go to Skull Island, and she redeems herself. She manages to find a way to, she helps Kong in this amazing final act against Kamazotz. And I just want to say the art is just extraordinary. The whole thing is just so great. And I think Kingdom Kong is a pretty solid entry. If you haven't read it yet, I think you should. It's really good. Evolved Godzilla mentions it's easy regarding Godzilla in Hell. He scales above the entire IDW universe and even D&D verse. I'm assuming, not sure what you mean by D&D verse. And God Mountain created everything in the verse. Well, just to be very blunt, a lot of this comes allegedly from the authors who are not authorities on the IDW Godzilla comic series. A lot of what they might say, you could, and I believe they've even admitted, their ideas, their thoughts pertain only to the issue they worked on. But then there's other things where it sounds like they're trying to say that the concepts they, by the way, had, but it never reached the final version of the comic itself, in no way, shape, or form is supported by IDW publishing as a whole. It would be like if I became a writer all of a sudden and decided to say, no, my characters, or this new character that I'm inventing in this solo or one single issue is actually responsible for creating the entire IDW multiverse, but then that's not corroborated anywhere in any other Godzilla story. So it's a claim made by authors. Again, allegedly, I mean, I'm just gonna, I have no idea giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying that's what they said. But again, they're not really a, I don't see them as an authority figure on this. I don't really see them as someone who gets to say those things and then that is taken at face value. Again, for me, when it comes to evaluating strength, power, what to accept, what not to accept, I look mainly at the empirical side of things and see if what they say might might corroborate or help maybe fill in the blanks. For example, in the third Godzilla in Hell issue, we see in the very beginning the moon has been fragmented. We don't see Space Godzilla do that in the story, but the illustrator Buster Moody has mentioned that Space Godzilla did that on his way to the Earth. That checks out. Nothing contradicts it. Sounds cool to me. But anyway. Yeah, so number 9 in this ranking of the Monsterverse. Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, the first series. There's currently a part 2 that's happening now, but it's incomplete, so I didn't include it in the list. But I really, really liked this because, for starters, I love Godzilla, I love Superman, so seeing my two favorite characters go head to head, it made me so happy. I'm so happy to see it. And yeah, what happens, the end result for Superman, of course, how do I say this? As much as I love Superman, it is kind of badass that Godzilla took him down. And I'm not gonna lie, I have friends that are Superman fans, but not big Godzilla fans, and I love bringing this up every now and then to rub it in because, you know, it's all for good. But man, one thing about this comic in itself that I really loved is that it's, for starters, it's written by Brian Buccellato, and he absolutely nailed the characterizations for Superman, Wonder Woman, Supergirl, Batman, Lex Luthor. I mean, he gets these characters. And he understands Godzilla and Kong. So there's a lot of cool elements. There's a lot of things from the lore of the DC universe that, by the way, that interconnects pretty well with the Monsterverse lore. And it's just great. This is like, I see this as a great template for all future crossovers. You got to make sure you have a writer who loves and respects and values both respective IPs and the characters therein, and also is, creative and finds a way to, have a number of crazy, awesome, unique matchups. I mean, who'd have thought we'd ever see Batman in a giant Batmech? I mean, we have, technically, but, you know what I mean. Actually duking it out against Mechagodzilla. That's pretty cool. But let's not forget one of the most coolest parts in the entire comic. In a comic series with so many cool parts, Kong becoming a Green Lantern. Yes. Yes. Oh yeah. This was great stuff. And eventually Superman does return, and I gotta say, I did love, also, as much as I love seeing Godzilla and Superman fight, I do love seeing them team up. I am one of those guys that love seeing, I love seeing team ups between my favorite characters. What can I say? It's kind of like seeing, you have two friends, you love them, but they've never actually met each other before, but you always think, man, if they met up, that would be like the greatest crossover ever because they would get along so well together. Evolved Godzilla states D&D stands for Dungeons and Dragons, which is pretty OP, and the IDW multiverse consists of Transformers, Sonic, MLP, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Power Rangers, which is canon. Okay, cool. Thanks for that clarification. Number 8 is a comic series that I really love. This Godzilla Dominion. I've talked about some of my one of my favorite Godzilla comic book moments comes from Godzilla Dominion, and I just love how it's all from Godzilla's POV. I don't think this as a concept would work for a movie, and I mean this when I say I really think it would be a big mistake to have an entire feature-length Godzilla movie that's just 90% or 95% or 100% Godzilla. We need humans. We need human involvement. It's crucial. However, as a comic or as a potential comic series, this is great. In fact, I would also argue maybe it would be great to see this for a Monarch episode. You can dedicate an entire Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode, maybe from just the POV of Godzilla. But what I love about this story is how you really get a feel for Godzilla. This guy has been around for so long, and it's kind of like when you get a feeling where you're like walking, maybe going down memory lane. You visit the town you grew up in, and you go down to where it was your favorite hangout spot with your friends, but now it's been turned into a massive outlet for Best Buys or grocery stores or something. Maybe there are a bunch of condos there now, or I think of that, but now imagine being Godzilla. This is a guy who almost everywhere on the planet he's visited, he's left his footprint. He was there when oh man, this place used to have been it used to have been just a chain of volcanoes. Now it's a thriving island paradise. Or now he's seeing places where ancient humans once roamed. They built this place for him. This is where he came to coexist. But now it's far, they're long gone, and the only thing, no one knows that they existed except Godzilla. But I really love how we learn more about Godzilla's personality as well. I mean, for the longest time, it kind of felt like Godzilla was because he's like the god king of the planet. Humans are beneath him, and perhaps that was mostly the case and still is. But Serizawa sacrificing himself for Godzilla in Godzilla King of the Monsters left a searing impression. And I think the fact that such a creature, such a being like Godzilla can, think about this and does care, not only does he value human life, but he values just life in general. He's all about maintaining balance in the world. Here, one of his fellow Titans gets captured, so he swims halfway around the world just to free her. Or he remembers Mothra. He remembers the sacrifice that she made, and that in itself became a catalyst for Godzilla to care more about not only the natural order, but to understand why. Not just for power's sake, not just for dominance, but because it's important to be better than the destroyers he has faced down over the years. But yeah, Godzilla Dominion, highly recommend it. Loved it. My next entry on this list is Skull Island. It's the 2023 series on Netflix. And I gotta say, I enjoyed the series a great deal. I have a whole separate video dedicated to it where I guess I'm just gonna summarize my thoughts. I love the animation. I thought it was really well done. I thought the human characters were strong. They had, relatable personalities. They all had understandable motives. They all had interesting aspects about what motivated them that made me glued to my seat. And of course, we would later go on to learn more about Kong and find out that, before, there was Gia from Godzilla vs. Kong, there have been other human companions, throughout, the history of Kong and, him being king of Skull Island, and, what happened to them. And even though I'm sad to say I don't have this shot here, but it is in my breakdown video, but there is this one memorable shot where Kong is in his home and he's reflecting on the items of all his friends, his human companions from years past, and you notice that there's a lot of them, which means Kong is quite tragic. As we know, he's gone through a lot. He lost see the birth of Kong that we covered in the past here, but Kong has absolutely not only is he the most tragic character in the entire Monsterverse, but this guy is what really spurs the tragedy of Kong is that he's lost so many important people in his life. And one of the main interesting character dynamics, what his character arc in this entire show, and I know it's not going to be picked up for a second season. That's not going to happen, but it does have a comic series that just came out, and I am planning on covering that. But so I just want for now to treat the Skull Island show as its own self-contained. It has no second season, but as far as what it does for the King Kong character itself, I really love how he goes from being this sort of like, I'd say he's like a young king. He's brash. He gets in fights. The thrill of combat, of battle, it motivates him. But at the same time, what's a king without his people? What's a king to a god? And more importantly, what's a king to a hero? Someone to be inspired by. And though Kong is reckless, and indeed some of the things he does in this show later have a huge negative effect, it really does backfire on him tremendously. He does learn his lessons. He does begin to realize, and unfortunately it does come at great sacrifice to the ones he loves, but he does begin to see the merits of, not only what it means to be a king, but what it means to be a protector. And sometimes it's more important to be a protector than a king. And there are, massive differences, and this kind of parallels Godzilla in a way as well. But one thing that I want to say about this show real quick is that I loved its so undeniably evil Titan antagonist, the Kraken. This thing is so sadistic. It's so cruel, and I loved it. I loved how unambiguously evil it was. So yeah, Skull Island, it was great. I enjoyed it. I know it's not for everyone. Not everyone enjoyed it, but I thought the characters, the humans, were such a strong component to the show. Definitely worth the rewatch if it's been a while. And, of course, Kong is just awesome in it as well. Also, I love this part. I just wanted to include this. Totally true. It's not something she actually said in this shot, by the way. She didn't actually scream, "I love kaiju." But it's a meme. But, I'm sure you could tell. But, yeah. This was one of Kong's companions. She definitely left a very strong impression, not only on myself as a viewer, but on Kong as well. So number 6 on my ranking is Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. Yeah, so who'd have thought we'd ever see the day where we're getting a live action Godzilla series? And yeah, Kong has a memorable part near the end too, but the first season mostly revolves around, a cast of very interesting human characters and what that has to do with Godzilla. But it all starts off with Godzilla versus the Mutos in 2014, and we get to see the aftermath, which is something that I feel like the movies gloss over. When these two gods, when these warring giant, seemingly indestructible beings of mass destruction go to war, like, not showing the aftermath of what happens to the people, to the cities, to the area after is a huge mistake. And this show touches upon that in a way that I am still in awe of what they did. Because in the aftermath of the events of Godzilla 2014, San Francisco, the city of San Francisco, becomes like a no man's land. All the people have been evacuated. There's still areas that have high radiation. There's so much about this that I find to be both deeply unsettling, but also so fascinating. And I do think, like, I'm so happy to see a show that tackles that. Godzilla is, of course, amazing. This is a shot from his, when Godzilla goes through the Golden Gate Bridge. In the movie, the way it's shot in the movie, depicted in the movie, is so much different, though, in the show. The show gives a way different perspective on this. Like, we get to see Godzilla from a different lens instead of like from the movie. It's still, scary and terrifying, but you kind of get the impression that Godzilla is just trying to get to, he's trying to do his job. He's trying to go take on the Mutos. He's trying to save the world, restore balance. That's what Serizawa was talking about. But here we see Godzilla from a different perspective. From, I am a tiny little human, and this is just this giant, like, godlike rage monster, and he is destroying everything and everyone around me. I literally just lost an entire school bus full of children, and you can't help but, after seeing the scene, you can't help but think Godzilla truly is a horrific monster. One thing to remember about the show, though, the main overarching theme is duality. Duality is just, it's literally the glue for the show. Everything that happens, all the characters, their motivations, the things that they do, it comes down to a sense of duality. It's the main catalyst for pretty much everybody. But here we see a trio of characters. We have Shaw, Keiko, and Bill Randa. Bill Randa, by the way, that's this guy. This is John Goodman's character from Kong Skull Island. This is, of course, Bill when he was much younger. Keiko, who's his wife, and Shaw, who plays such a huge role in this entire show. Let me just say that. I love the fact that the young Shaw here is played by Riot Russell, but then later he's played by, the older Shaw is played by Kurt Russell, so father and son both get to work on the same production, and it's great. I love seeing stuff like that. Keiko is my pick for being the best character on the show, by the way, and of course every time these three were on screen and we were seeing, like, the what happened during the 1940s and 50s and 60s with these characters, it was always my eyes were glued to the screen. It's compelling human drama stuff. And then, of course, in while not exactly the present time, more like this is taking place during 2015, so a year after Godzilla 2014, we follow Mei, Kate Randa, and Kentaro. Kate and Kentaro here are both they're both driven by this trying to find their father, and of course, even though they're brother and sister, they didn't realize that until recently. It turns out their father has been living different lives. Yeah. These three, by the way, generally, I do admit the previous trio, their story arcs, their subplots, obviously they're more interesting than these three, but I don't want to take from the fact that they're an interesting bunch, and I do like, for example, Kate as a character. By the way, and sorry, I'm running. I gotta remember who. Trying to remember the name of the actress who plays her. Anna Sawai. Anna Sawai, by the way, she's here in the middle. She is an amazing actor. You should totally check out her not only the show Shogun, but her role in that. It's so compelling, and I'm excited to see that she returns in Monarch season 2. I want to address something real quick. I do think one of the things that this show, like, as far as like some drama, controversy. As far as controversy goes, one of the things, I'm not saying this is my view, I'm actually going to express what I think here in just a second, but one of the things that some people complained about for this show involves Kate's sexual identity. And I just want to say that to the people who thought that they were trying, like the showrunners, the filmmakers, you know, the show was trying to cram her, like, her identity down your throats. No, they weren't. Her sexual identity actually had nothing to do with the significance of her as a character, or like I said at the very start, the theme of this show is duality, and the whole point of seeing her, her past and what led to the present moment was her discovering that she's really not that much different than her father, that she and her father mirror each other in ways that she didn't realize. It had nothing to do with her affinity towards other women, whether they had her be straight or gay has absolutely no bearing on her as a character. And every time I would read that or hear that from some people who would talk about, like, they didn't like this show because they're cramming some woke agenda down my throat. No, that's not what's happening at all. That was not the point. So, pet peeve, just throwing that out there. But anyway, something else, I mentioned Kurt Russell's Shaw earlier. Yeah, I do love the sense of mystery, how they would be globetrotting the world, Kate is looking for her father, but then finding out more of the mystery behind Monarch. This was a bit difficult at first, because going in, if you've already seen like Godzilla 2014, Godzilla King of the Monsters, even Godzilla vs. Kong, you kind of feel like, is there really a mystery behind Monarch? And yeah, learning more about the secrets of this, clandestine organization, finding out like who the founders were, and like the things that they didn't want the public to know. Like, it was pretty interesting. And of course, Shaw to me is one of the main interesting movers behind the entire plot. But let's talk about some of the kaiju here. I loved this guy right here. God, he was so cool. I loved how, the whole introduction to the Frostvark, how, they find these pilots who have been frozen solid, and then finding out that they have awakened this pretty rad looking Titan was just so cool. I'm not going to spend too much time here, because, again, I want to move on, and there's still so much more to discuss, but special shout out to the Frostvark. This guy, I really love this Titan. The design, its powers, abilities, its involvement in the story. But then the next one, the Ion Dragon. This thing is a nasty creature. And all I can say is I loved how it received its comeuppance at the hands of Godzilla. Speaking of whom, seeing this, we kind of saw this in the opening credits of Godzilla 2014, but seeing this play out in the show, kind of, again, it's kind of similar to how Godzilla's attack on the Golden Gate Bridge, depending on perspectives, either you think he's like a hero or you might see him as a villain. Seeing this scene with context added so much more. And like I mentioned, Godzilla vs. the Ion Dragon was the cherry on top. There's more that this show does. It adds a great deal to the Monsterverse to world building. It adds more that I'm just not going to have enough time to really get into, but I do think it's one of the best additions to the Monsterverse. Absolutely love it. I was kind of pained to place it at number 6. I kind of feel like it's a far greater companion or sequel to Godzilla 2014 than Godzilla King of the Monsters. And yeah, I'm really happy that we're getting a season 2. I think it's coming out sometime next year. Not exactly sure when, but I do know it takes place. A lot of it will be happening on Skull Island, so we get to see Kong. And yeah, I'm very interested in seeing what direction they go. Number 5, Godzilla vs. Kong, rating 4 out of 5. Okay, folks, time for a little story. Let me just say, years ago, in a time that feels like another life, there was this thing called a pandemic. It sucked, and it still is causing a great deal of pain and misery to this day. Long story short, this caused a lot of changes in everyday life, to the point where you may have been in areas that were, or maybe I should say you were in places where, you would have social distancing, you would have businesses that were closed, or you would have places that, it could only allow a few people in. This, from a entertainment perspective, it caused a lot of delays. Let's just say that. Delays in production. Godzilla vs. Kong being one of them. And though I started off in a, wow, that's kind of depressing, Tom. It's okay. It's about to get better. So, by the time Godzilla vs. Kong was coming out, it was in the month of March, and that's my birthday time. As a birthday gift, my wife gave me, like the greatest birthday gift of all, which was renting out an entire movie theater so that I could bring my friends in and we could watch my favorite movie monsters clash. Pretty big deal. And I hadn't seen my friends in like over a year due to the COVID, the lockdowns, and all that stuff. So to say that this movie holds a special place in my heart. Or maybe the other way around, I hold a special place in my heart for this movie. I absolutely love and cherish this movie. It's one of my son's favorite movies. I mean, there's so much about this film to unpack that... Okay, so let's start with the some of the main highlights. To me, one of the breakthrough characters introduced to the Monsterverse is Gia. She is Kong's friend, and I feel like she is kind of like Kong's tether, not only to the human race, but also in certain respects, kind of like his guide to becoming a better character, a better Titan. The show Skull Island explored this, where his human companions would teach Kong a degree of not only humility, but also discovering his own unique humanity. I feel like this movie, in many respects, solidified something truly important, and I know Godzilla fans are going to hate me for saying this, but Kong is the soul of the Monsterverse. I would argue he's its front runner, or maybe his maybe not front runner, his spokesperson. Front runner could be the best way of explaining it too, but I'll elaborate more about what I mean. So Kong is quite possibly the only Titan in the entire Monsterverse that mainstream audiences can relate to. And that's because he is a giant ape. He has relatable expressions. He winces in pain. You could tell when he's angry. You could tell when he's excited. You could tell when he's sad. The fact that, we fellow apes can relate to him is something that shouldn't be disregarded or despised. It's actually a strength, and I'm happy that the Monsterverse, that the filmmakers capitalized on it. What I love about this, what I truly love, is that Kong has character arcs. Not only in this movie, but in the next film, which we'll get to shortly. In this movie, Kong discovers he's not, he has heritage. He has a legacy. And though, eventually he'll discover that he's not the last remaining member of his kind, he does get to go to Hollow Earth, the originating point of not only the Titans, but his own kind, his people. But there he finds his battle axe. He discovers his, throne, which, leads to him becoming King Kong. But also leaves plenty of room for growth. I mean, he kind of discovers that he and Godzilla's kind, their race, their species have been at war. There was an ancient rivalry and all that jazz. But Kong himself eventually, just like Godzilla, they break the chain. They manage to kind of learn from the humans, I wish the humans could learn from the humans, and war bad, let's stop hating each other. But I do love how Kong is depicted, and this movie is this very strong, I'd say, testament to the fact that making Kong the face of the Monsterverse was one of the best decisions they could have made. And Kong fighting Godzilla, especially whether it's on a U.S. on a carrier ship or in Hong Kong. Oh my God! Oh my Godzilla! It's so awesome. Speaking of which, the G-Man is also such a badass in this movie. I mean, again, I haven't really said this yet, but it should be pretty clear by now. I love the Monsterverse, and I love its depiction of Godzilla. And here, he's on a mission. We, for the most part, for most of the movie, think he's maybe gone bad, but in fact, he's chasing the ghost of his arch nemesis and this new, would-be contender to the throne, this new kid on the block. Kong is getting in his way, and I do love, despite the fact I did mention that it's so much easier for us to relate to Kong due to him. We're both apes. We both share, and we have the same feelings and expressions. Kong is far more relatable. They do manage to make Godzilla relatable too, and it's hard to see, but at times his expressions are just perfect. I mean, he even laughs when he burns Kong's back catches him with his heat beam. I gotta say, I love Mechagodzilla. I'm so happy he ended up in this movie. I know it was predictable. I mean, who didn't predict that, yeah, we would get Godzilla and Kong fighting a couple times, but eventually they're gonna team up, right, against a greater enemy, right, a common enemy. And, there's a reason why that trope is so, why it's a thing. Because it's awesome. Godzilla and Kong fight Mechagodzilla. I never thought I'd see the day when Kong would fight Mechagodzilla. That's so awesome. And this Mechagodzilla, I love the design. I love how it doesn't look slick and clean. It doesn't look like it's right off the assembly line. It's brand new, like some of the other previous Mechagodzilla models. This one looks like a true grim, dark apex hunter. It's designed to terminate Godzilla and his kind, and it shows, and I loved it. There's so many things about this movie that it's got so much rewatchability to it. I can watch this movie again and again for many years to come. The visual aesthetics, again, I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, it's really great to see what so many of these filmmakers were able to achieve, and to see some of my favorite characters come to life, come together in this movie that defied all odds. I mean, I mentioned earlier how like it had been delayed due to COVID, and then I gave my personal story of how me and my friends, we went to go, after not seeing each other for a year, we were able to see this movie together, and share in that experience. But it's also really cool that this was the first major motion picture to come out after, like, due to the COVID delays, and it kind of helped bring cinema back in a way. While I don't think it's completely recovered, I mean, it's a different world now with streaming and such, but Godzilla vs. Kong absolutely paved the way, and I'm so proud of it. I'm so happy, and it's, as a Godzilla fan, knowing that Godzilla played a part in trying to bring some stability back after so much, you know, that happened, and how this movie helped, you know, put smile on many faces. It helped make us feel good again. You know, that's something that I think these filmmakers should pat themselves on their back. This is a job well done. And also just seeing these two legends face off on the big screen. I mean, King Kong vs. Godzilla is a classic. It's one of the best Godzilla films ever made. And it's nice to see that even now, modern audiences can still enjoy these two. And yeah, Godzilla vs. Kong, solid entry. It has issues, of course. There are some issues with the plot, with the story. Some of the humans are also kind of two-dimensional, not that interesting. But overall, I think this was a great step. It was a step in the right direction, and it pretty much single-handedly not only helped bring cinemas back to life, but I'd say it reignited the Monsterverse. Unfortunately, Godzilla King of the Monsters, you know, didn't perform that well at the box office, and there was a time where I thought Godzilla, like many Godzilla fans, we thought Godzilla vs. Kong was going to be the final entry in the Monsterverse. But it did so well, the Monsterverse evolved and thrived, and I think this film is largely responsible. Next says, how you doing, man? Don't know if I'll be here for the rest of the ranking, but just wanted to say I love the Monsterverse. King of the Monsters is my personal favorite. Wonder what your favorite is. I will get to that, but King of the Monsters is definitely one of my favorites too. And yeah, it's coming up. Kong says, like, subscribe, and support, or it's Skull Island for your Wi-Fi. As a dad, I'm entitled to dad jokes. Coming up next, Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. I give this movie 4.5 stars out of 5. Alright, so I'm not going to dwell too much on the human element. Again, I think the human element is crucial to these movies. But I'm just going to say this regarding the human characters in this. Folks, if you're ever looking for a role model, if you're ever looking for someone to really look up to, look no further than Trapper. Trapper is my boy. He is a godsend. I'm really happy that he's going to come back in future Monsterverse related films. And I just want to say Dan Stevens, who plays him, is a phenomenal actor. He's a great human being. You should check him out. I loved him in FX's Legion, but he's also in other projects. He's one of a kind. But yes, I love me Trapper. Trapper is the way every scene, like, he just steals the show. Another reason why I absolutely love this movie is it brings Mothra back, and in a big, profound way. Whew, man, there's so much to cover here, but like yes. I loved how in this movie, both Godzilla and Kong kind of have their own subplots, their own unique story arcs. I'm going to talk about Godzilla first, but I will say Kong, his story arc mainly involved like Zuko and Shimo. Likewise, Godzilla, his story comes together with Mothra as well. Mothra becomes kind of like the great uniter. I love this shot here in Egypt. Godzilla and Kong just threw down. They had a rematch. It looked like Kong, due to some beast augmentations, was, holding his own. But ultimately, it looked like Godzilla was just about to, become the sole face of the Monsterverse, if you understand my meaning. But then Mothra intervenes. It's because Gia has become, her successor. She's kind of like the Shobijin, Mothra's fairies, all in one. And I love this shot of how they come together. Godzilla, of course, absolutely loves Mothra in the Monsterverse. They have a very close relationship. And it's nice to see Mothra return. I love the design for her in this. And yeah, I also do love how Godzilla undergoes a number of different transformations in this movie as well. Like in this shot, he just drained a nuclear power plant because he senses something is going on. Something's about to go down, so he needs to juice up. But, oh man, he looks so scary in this shot. And indeed, throughout this early parts of this movie, I kind of feel like, man, I would have loved to have seen an entire Godzilla solo film with this sort of aesthetic, because Godzilla is pretty terrifying here. I'd be remiss not to mention Evolved Godzilla, or Godzilla Rosé. This design has grown on me. I love it. I think it's great. I really do like what they did with Evolved Godzilla in this. I love the pink. I love Godzilla's ferocity. I love the fact that he's yoked. He gets so juiced up, and he goes from, in previous films he's like this steadfast protector of the world, maintaining balance, but in this movie he's pissed off. He's all about that power. So much has happened in like the last decade that he's just basically like, you know what? All right, fine. You know what? I'm not gonna be the good guy. I'm gonna be the one that calls the shots. And he's just, I don't blame him. I just love how Godzilla has literally become kind of like the he's like the nuclear equivalent to, he's like a WMD but for Titans. Like he's your guy. Like, oh, you're in a jam, the world is in danger, call Godzilla. I just love just how unmistakably badass he is in this movie. And I do like the Evolved Godzilla design. I like the fact that he's just so in your face, so like, I'm OP, I'm not ashamed to admit it. The moment you have his backing, it's not the question isn't if you're gonna win, it's when. And obviously I love the fact that he later turns the Colosseum into his own little his personal mattress. It's great. Next we have Kong. Kong, I mentioned he's the most tragic character in all of the Monsterverse. I think he is the soul, the face, or as some of you have mentioned, the golden child of the Monsterverse. Absolutely true. But God, I just take for a second, I love the expressions on this guy. It's part of the reason why it was wise to make him the face of the Monsterverse. I mean, who has not made that face? But one thing that I love that they do with his character here is that he eventually discovers there are other Kongs in the world, and I think it's great that Kong, that they did this for him as a character, because it really helped him grow. I like the fact that he meets Zuko, and honestly, when we first heard that there was going to be a baby Kong, I kind of rolled my eyes. I thought, oh man, please don't be lame. Please don't be lame. Oh, there are so many ways this could go bad. This could end very poorly. But no, Zuko is made for a really great addition to the story. I mean, Zuko kind of has his own. I really liked how at first he's kind of like this. He's a little shit, man. Like, he tries to get Kong killed a couple times, but when you discover that Zuko fears for his life, he's been abused by a certain antagonist we will touch upon very shortly, you kind of get why Zuko is the way he is. But seeing how Kong treats him, how Kong goes from not only being a potential foil, to a protector, big brother, to eventually kind of like becoming like a surrogate father for Zuko, was really, I mean, I love how this movie has like an entire like 10-minute sequence of Kong and Zuko, dialogue free. This is kind of the source of the sort of the mindset that we could get like an entire movie of just these monsters. And while I don't think an entire movie of just Godzilla doesn't really work, one with Kong you can make a better case for, due to the fact that he's far more relatable. So, audiences can empathize more with him. But the fact that they have entire sequences in this movie of Kong, Zuko, dialogue free, is just, it's truly a great feat in storytelling. Also, Kong getting the Beast Glove. I mean, I get it. It's all about selling that merch. But man, just look at Kong, man. This is pretty awesome. It's pretty badass. I love the fact, I kind of do wish we got to see more Kong dual wielding the Beast Glove and the Battle Axe. But then, I feel like we're going to get that in future installments anyway. But overall, you know what? I really do love how Kong and Zuko come together. And while I'm going to touch upon more my girl Shimo here in just a sec, I absolutely love the sense of closure, how Kong went from being, again, like a tragic orphan to becoming the new king of Hollow Earth, to becoming King Kong, and how he unites his people. It's great stuff. And also Kong being instrumental in breaking freeing Shimo from her chains. It kind of speaks well to the King Kong character, because Kong wasn't, in the Monsterverse, Kong is like a superhero in many respects. I've compared him to Batman already. He is like a superhero. He is the Monsterverse equivalent to that, to a Monsterverse equivalent to the Avengers. But he hasn't always been like this. Throughout Kong's entire history, he's more of that tragic monster. For many of his movies in the past, he was in chains. Like, literally, humans came to Skull Island and took him back to their human civilization, to civilized society, but put him in chains, and eventually he this would lead to his untimely demise. So it's a nice change of pace to see Kong go from that to actually liberating others, and it's great. Shimo, I love Shimo. What's there not to like about this Titan? All I can say is I'm really hoping they don't kill her off. I will be super pissed if in Godzilla Kong Supernova that, to try and make the new big upcoming evil Titan, badass, or look how strong this new Titan is, we're gonna have him like kill Shimo. Like, no, don't you dare. Don't you dare. I will riot. What a great, fantastic design, too. Everything about this character is just so cool. I love me Shimo. But I gotta say, the standout for me in this entire movie is the antagonist, Scar King. This guy. Just look how he's slouched. This guy... Before, I would have maybe argued that Titans like King Ghidorah, Kamazotz, they're evil, yeah, but I don't think they're evil like how humans are evil. and I would maybe say like King Ghidorah is still more like a force. He's more like an embodiment of chaos as opposed to being truly evil. Although I would still say he is. Scar King is like a psychopath. This guy just feeds off of suffering. And I gotta share this meme, of course. This I'm sure so many of you are familiar with. But I think what I like about this is in this entire introduction, we learn everything we need to know about Scar King. First, we find out he's the Mad King of this subterranean society where so many of Kong's people are like they're slaves, and they're pretty much not seen as their own unique individuals. They're seen as a means to an end for Scar King. He sees them more as tools, not living beings to love, to foster. He's also heavily implied to be Zuko's biological father, but he could care less. And of course, when he's introduced here, the first thing he tries to do after getting sized up by Kong here is that he tries to make fun of Kong. Okay, well, Kong, maybe I can't beat him in a fight, so what I'm going to do is I'm trying to intimidate him in another way. I'm going to try and humiliate him, make everyone laugh at him. And then later on, he gets so pissed off at Zuko, realizing Zuko failed in his mission, that he begins to threaten him. And then Zuko's protector friend comes over, and for a second there, this is one of my favorite shots right here, because Scar King stands up and he has this truly demonic look. Like, at first, he seems to be showing mercy, but we know he's taking sadistic joy in the fact that here's one of his subjects groveling, begging for him to show mercy, and he just gets off it. He derives so much enjoyment from it. This guy feeds off of power. And of course, he would later kick that poor Kong into the lava and further traumatize Zuko. I mean, just look at this guy. Look at him. He is such a great villain. I gotta be real with you guys. I kind of don't like the fact that they killed him. I really don't. I still to this. I get why they did in this story. It was Scar King received his just comeuppance. I'm happy that he did, because I loved to hate him, but I also feel like Scar King could have made for a great multi-picture like arc of villainy. So I do wish that we saw more of him, but it makes sense within the context of the story they were telling. So I'm hoping in the future we get maybe looking maybe 3-5 years down the line, I make another Ranking the Monsterverse segment, and maybe Godzilla willing, we get a Scar King origin graphic novel. That would be pretty awesome. This is another great shot. I mean, the entire, I guess, the battle in Rio de Janeiro, you could consider to be its own kind of thing, but I feel like it's just a continuation of this massive conflict in the Hollow Earth, where the monsters, as soon as they clash, they fight in a zero gravity field, and it's so cool. It's just, oh man, it's just so great. I love this movie. And of course, I never thought I'd see the day where we see Godzilla, Kong, and Mothra sharing the same screen. So yeah, Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. It's absolutely one of my favorite, not just Monsterverse films, but just one of my favorite Godzilla films, period. A couple things that I didn't really like about it. I mean, I'm kind of 50-50 on the soundtrack. I'm going to be talking about that more in the next couple Monsterverse films on my ranking list. But yeah, I'm not really a big fan of Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire's soundtrack. Nothing personal against the composer, of course. It just didn't work for me. And there are parts and places where I think, like, either, regarding Adam Wingard's involvement. I mean, he directed Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. I do feel like there are some certain scenes that maybe should have been cut. I do think there are certain characters that should have received a bit more of an expanded role, or I would have done it differently. We're going to see, of course, I guess if I were to elaborate more about what I mean here before we move on, because, geez, it's getting late and I still have a lot more to do. I will just say that I would have done more with Kyle Chandler's character and Millie Bobby Brown's character, respectively. But for now, it is what it is, right? This is so hard. We're getting to the final three, guys. Everyone watching, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're getting to number 3, Godzilla King of the Monsters. I'm giving this 5 out of 5 stars. I love this movie. I enjoy it so much. I'm directed by Mike Daughtry, who's done, like, Trick or Treat, Krampus. Extremely, like, such a great screenwriter for starters, but also a great director. I love his work, and I love what he did with Godzilla and his amazing friends in this film. So, let's get into it. So, I want to say real quick, even though Godzilla King of the Monsters is number 3 on my power ranking list, it wasn't always. Sometimes it's my number 1, sometimes it's my number 2, but I had to search my feelies here, and I gotta say, even though Godzilla King of the Monsters is number 3, the soundtrack by Bear McCreary is number 1. Bring Bear McCreary back. That's what I'm going to say for now. But I got to say, I really do like the human involvement here. Millie Bobby Brown, fresh off of her success in Stranger Things, starring as Eleven. Here, she's Maddie, and I think she's a great character. I love what they do with the Russell family here. Emma Russell, Dr. Emma Russell here, who, at first, the trailers left it a bit ambiguous what her role would be, but she is, in fact, the main human antagonist, and she's one of those characters that you get. The key to writing a really good villain is making them not only relatable, but make the audience question whether or not they're really villains in the first place. Like, are they really bad guys? And while I do think, like, Emma Russell is a great antagonist, and I get exactly where she's coming from, I am not one of those people who think, oh yeah, I think that, I'm going to question whether or not she's a villain or not. No, she absolutely 100% is a villain. She's an eco-terrorist. What she does in this movie is appalling. And yeah, she does it for reasons that you kind of get. She lost her kid, and, it causes a great deal of personal trauma and such. But hey, you don't go and unleash living weapons of mass destruction on the earth and start pursuing this really terrible... you don't go all Thanos, okay? I loved Kyle Chandler's character, Mark Russell. I thought he was arguably one of the most relatable characters in the entire Monsterverse. I really liked I liked his involvement. I like how he goes from, I want Godzilla dead for what he did to my family, to I still don't exactly forgive him, but I see him as a necessary force, and how that changed him as a character as well. I thought was pretty good writing, and again, I kind of wish we got more of an expansion of, I thought we could have seen more of his character and Millie Bobby Brown's character as well, but unfortunately that just wasn't expanded upon. And Sir Charles Dance, Tywin Lannister himself. Technically, this guy, he's still alive, so hopefully we get to see him again. Alright, let's talk about the monsters. Oh, God, the monsters are just amazing. King Ghidorah in the Monsterverse. This is probably my favorite King Ghidorah design and depiction. I love how each Ghidorah each head has its own personality as well. I just love how just apocalyptic Ghidorah is. They fully embrace that, and I feel like they let King Ghidorah truly cut loose. They unleashed the three-headed, the devil with three heads, the Monster Zero. He is fully realized in this movie, and I love it. Mike Daughtry, I think, has mentioned that he was inspired by those old Renaissance paintings, and I think it shows in every single shot, especially the ones with the monsters. And I love how, like, it kind of does begin to, while the Monsterverse, by the time we get to Godzilla vs. Kong, we kind of begin to see more, I guess, video gamey angles, if that makes sense. Like, what I mean is different perspective shots. The perspective shots we get in Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla King of the Monsters and Kong Skull Island, and I guess Monarch Legacy of Monsters 2, are shots that feel like I feel like I'm actually witnessing this from the perspective of a fellow human being. And I think that shows. And then, of course, we get some amazing shots like this. I mean, when you look at this, I feel like we are literally looking at the true evil, the true, like, such a... You totally get why King Ghidorah is Godzilla's nemesis and has been his arch rival for, like, what feels like millions of years. Like, I love how in the very beginning, you know, when Godzilla wakes up near a monarch outpost designed to, monitor Godzilla, he is super pissed off. He is rattled, and the reason why is because King Ghidorah is free. When you find out your arch nemesis, when you find out, yeah, that guy who wants to bring about the end times, cleanse the planet clean of life, is awake, he's free, yeah, I would be pissed off too. And yeah, Ghidorah here just showing his complete disdain for human beings is just a cherry on top. I love how this movie plays with the dynamics between Godzilla and King Ghidorah. I mean, every hero needs a villain, right? Superman, Lex Luthor, Batman, the Joker, Godzilla, King Ghidorah. These two are arch nemesis for arch rivals for a reason. And just about every shot involving these two going at it is a scene stealer. I just love this movie, and there's so much about, King Ghidorah's involvement that's just so noteworthy. Oh, in this shot too, this is Emma again. She's the human antagonist, but eventually I feel like she realizes the error of her ways. But alas, it's too late. You made a deal with the devil, and now the devil here, King Ghidorah, has come to collect. And oh my god, King Ghidorah is just so damn cool in this movie. It's a shame though that, I mean, despite how great this movie is, it's kind of a pity that they went with King Ghidorah already, because now the question is, it's going to be kind of a tad bit unbelievable to bring him back. I mean, there's a lot of... maybe it's not as big of a deal as I think it is, but I do feel like, man, you went with King Ghidorah in your third outing. Maybe, I mean, I get why, because the question is, would there have been more Monsterverse films after this? And I don't think there was any, like, obviously there's no guarantee even now, but around 2019 when Godzilla King of the Monsters came out, we didn't really know if this cinematic universe was sustainable. And again, given King of the Monsters is kind of a disappointing box office revenue, I do think there was some considerable doubt that the Monsterverse would be around in the future. And of course now it's evolved, it's thriving, which is great. And I feel like if they not only had like a 10-year plan, but also kind of figured, hey, you know, it's in the year 2026 and beyond, you know, we're gonna have Supernova, or, you know, we're gonna have more Monsterverse stuff. I think maybe they would have saved King Ghidorah for a little bit later down the road, but still, I love King Ghidorah, his depiction, his design, his sound, everything. Everything about King Ghidorah in this movie, just A+. And of course we have Mothra here. I'm gonna not dwell too much on Mothra, but I will say I absolutely love and adore what they did with the Queen of the Monsters here. Her relationship, her symbiotic connection with Godzilla was really... it was nice to see Mothra and Godzilla not be bitter enemies like we've seen so many times. And Mothra standing up and protecting Godzilla against King Ghidorah, definitely one of the highlights. It sucks that it involved Mothra's destruction, but of course Mothra, her main power is reincarnation, and the fact that she would eventually return again in subsequent Monsterverse films is great. I mean, we just touched upon Godzilla Kong, the New Empire, and her involvement in that. So it's great to know that Mothra would come back, and that unlike for the rest of us, for Mothra, death is not permanent. It's merely you know, the next step towards, you know, your next life or something. So anyway, we're going to talk about Rodan, because my boy Rodan deserves to come back. Unapologetically, I am a Rodan simp. I think it's a shame that Rodan so far has only made one appearance in the Monsterverse. I want him in more material. I am blown away by the fact that we haven't seen him in even in a comic book. It's outrageous. You'll have to forgive me in case you haven't noticed. My face is turning red because, man, I've been talking for a while. I do want to finish things up here, but you know, I'm committed. I'm committed, guys. But I gotta say, Rodan, he takes the cake. It's a true shame that we haven't seen more of him. This design is perfection. It's my favorite Rodan design. And I do, again, the imagery here in this entire movie is just amazing. I love this shot here because it's kind of like, it's right at that moment Rodan realized he made a terrible mistake. But, you know, I'm just thankful. My boy Rodan, despite switching sides, you know, trying to align himself with King Ghidorah, and then, you know, Godzilla forgives him because, you know, Rodan's awesome. And Rodan, don't let that go to waste. I'm glad my boy's still alive, but I just want to see him more. The only thing that I guess I'm very, like, bitter about still is the fact that I kind of feel like they should have still gone with his classic roar. They completely changed it for this movie, and if he ever comes back, make him sound like Rodan. You got the perfect Rodan design, and of course Bear McCreary's entire score for Rodan's sequence when he's chasing our heroes is adrenaline through the roof. Loved it. I'm going to close off Godzilla King of the Monsters here by talking about my favorite scene, not only in the entire movie, but arguably my favorite scene from the entire Monsterverse. And I understand why some fans find this scene entirely, like, just controversial. I'll touch upon that, but first, I'm just going to say, Serizawa, realizing that the only way to save the Earth, the only way to not only restore balance, but stopping King Ghidorah, is to sacrifice himself for the one being that he literally sees as both a scientist and a philosopher as his god, is just such an emotional scene. And the fact that Godzilla takes notice, actually sees him and acknowledges him, is such a profound moment. I absolutely love this scene, and I understand that it's controversial because, okay, the whole point of Godzilla is that he's a nuclear allegory. You know, like, he's meant to represent the horrors of nuclear war, which this movie does touch upon. And believe me, it's not the people that think that Godzilla King of the Monsters is pro nuclear. I don't know how you could arrive to that conclusion. You might say because they use a nuke, in a way that's not, in a way that, does some good. But there are massive caveats that the movie even specifically takes note on. First off, the movie is not pro-nuclear. It's not, I'm sorry, it's a lot of metaphors, themes, subplots. They blatantly, flat out state that the movie clearly thinks nukes are bad. This is one of those things where Serizawa, when we touch upon not only the Hiroshima, Nagasaki bombings, the post-war trauma that an entire nation, an entire culture experienced. One of the main strengths of this entire scene is that Serizawa is able to take something so terrible, so destructive, like a nuke that has caused nothing but misery, harm to his people, to his country, to his culture, and found a way to actually take something so terrible but put it to good use. The only way that a nuke could possibly be put to good use is by reviving Godzilla. I mean, it's kind of similar, and in many ways it's an interesting the duality of how Serizawa is depicted in the Monsterverse, his character, his arc to his namesake from the 1954 original masterpiece, how that Serizawa realized that the only way to truly stop Godzilla was to use the oxygen destroyer. And saying that this movie is pro-nuclear because it used a nuke to revive Godzilla would be like me saying the original Gojira film is pro-oxygen destroyer because they used it to stop Godzilla. It's not remotely the point. And by the way, this would lead to massive caveats like I mentioned before. Serizawa sacrifices himself to revive Godzilla to give him and the planet a shot at stopping King Ghidorah. And it does lead to one of the coolest scenes, Godzilla Rebirth. Bear McCreary, his score, everything about this entire sequence is just incredible. But it does eventually lead to a massive caveat, like I said, which is Godzilla becoming a ticking time bomb. Serizawa's sacrifice bought the planet only a little bit of time, only a bit of extra time, because whether Godzilla stopped King Ghidorah or not, he does become a ticking time bomb. And again, it kind of does play with the fact that this movie the moral ambiguity of Godzilla King of the Monsters is something worth studying. There's a lot of more things that it touches upon that's morally gray, like the antagonist, like Emma Russell, her entire role in this. At times, again, you can see why she might be relatable, but it is undeniable that what she's doing is wrong. Her, like, maybe her heart, you could say, is in the right place. She wants to bring order to the world. She wants to, bring an end to war, pollution, and such. She's an eco-terrorist. Let's not forget, she's like Ra's al Ghul from Batman. But her methods are wrong and ineffective and counterproductive because it led to King Ghidorah's reawakening. Serizawa's sacrifice, despite being for the greater good, and indeed it would eventually, in hindsight, be a necessary thing to do, it could have also massively backfired. There's a lot that would happen after Serizawa's sacrifice, a lot of different variables, factors, other key players on the board, like Mothra. Her sacrifice as well would help Godzilla eventually maintain a sense of order, bring his new power level under control, so to speak. But anyway, I do want to touch upon it more maybe in the future, but for now I'm going to have to leave it at that. Godzilla King of the Monsters, one of my favorite Godzilla movies of all time. Love everything about it. We are coming up to the last final two. Number 2 on my Monsterverse ranking is 2014's Godzilla, directed by Gareth Edwards. I'm going to start once again. Well, not once again, but I've done this kind of in the past. I want to share a quick little brief story with you guys. When I went, you got to understand, after the Godzilla drought, where like nearly a decade of nothing Godzilla, you know, fans, we had to like basically go back and just, you know, and as much as I love all the show era, the Godzilla Heisei Millennium era, you can only do so much. You know, rewatching the same movie over and over again, have the same sort of discussion online with other fans play out over and over and over again. So when finding out that Godzilla was returning and it was going to be, you know, produced by Legendary Pictures, directed by Gareth Edwards, it's going to be the start of a new Godzilla series, was just incredible news, and I did my best to just be completely oblivious about it. I would watch the trailers and think they were awesome, but I wouldn't follow behind the scenes. I would do my best to go into this movie as clear, like it's just like as much in the I guess what I'm trying to say is I wanted to enter this movie being completely ignorant. Like, I have no idea what to expect. And I gotta be real, this movie was disappointing when I first saw it. I kind of went in expecting this movie was gonna be like an edge of your seat thriller, rock'em sock'em kaiju battle, something similar to Pacific Rim, only Godzilla being like a chief antagonist, like a really evil monster causing mass destruction. I was kind of expecting something more like Return of Godzilla or the original Gojira instead of what we ended up getting. And I saw this movie with my best friend, and we were both pretty disappointed, not gonna lie. One of the main chief complaints about this movie is Godzilla's screen time, even though, you know, he has less screen time in, say, Invasion of Astro Monster, but that's still considered one of, you know, that's still a fan favorite, and rightfully so. So in order for me to have really come around to like and appreciate this movie more, I had to see it for what it really, for what the movie is, for what the story it's trying to tell, instead of just taking my personal beliefs, what I wanted it to be or what I would have done, and imposing it on it. It's best to judge a movie on what it is, on its own potential, on its own merits, as opposed to our preconceived notions. I do want to say the music composed by Alexander Desplat here is amazing. I love the Godzilla 2014 soundtrack. Its score is riveting. It's really, it's kind of, it's amazing. I don't see many people talking about it much, but I do think it deserves it. It does deserve to be, I'd say, it deserves way more praise than it receives. Now, let's get to the next part. So, let's address the Bryan Cranston elephant in the room. Bryan Cranston is a solid actor, one of my favorites, and his character in this movie, Joe Brody, is absolutely an instant hit with fans, and all the more reason why his, his death, which to me kickstarts the second act of the movie, is such a profound mistake. You know, as much as I love this movie, I think it's really important to state that I could talk all day about all the things this movie gets right, and, you know, I could clash with all kinds of people who, you know, maybe Godzilla's limited screen time hurts your whatever joy you could feel for this movie, or maybe you don't like the editing or something. But this is something I think you could still love a movie, but still be able to define its faults. You could point out where it went wrong, right? I think Godzilla 2014 is a great Godzilla movie, but what happened to Bryan Cranston, his character, and of course a couple other things about the plot, about the story, is what's truly holding it back from becoming a great, not just great Godzilla movie, but a great film, period. And I mean like on par with the likes of Godzilla -1 and the original Gojira. Now, if you want to know what I think they should have done, check out Up From the Depths' film, where they talk about, you know, how they would have handled Joe Brody as a character. And I don't know if during this time period, if they had a 10-year plan for the Monsterverse. It's clear that they were planning on starting something like a Godzilla equivalent to the MCU, but it's such a profound mistake that I think even Gareth Edwards and the filmmakers have acknowledged since then. I mean, Bryan Cranston himself has, acknowledged, what happened to his character. Killing him off early was a huge mistake, and it was. I think it's generally universally agreed upon, and rightfully so. But yeah, check out Up From the Depths. I'm sure that you've heard of them. They're amazing. He goes into more detail about what he would have done with Joe Brody as a character, and his unfortunately his future in the Monsterverse was cut short. And what would have happened if he stuck around? I think that would have made the Monsterverse all the better. With that said, I think a lot of people kind of sleep on Aaron Taylor Johnson's role here, playing Ford Brody. Ford, I mean, a lot of people I've noticed kind of feel like his character is a bit two-dimensional, and I just want to remind everybody, the whole point of his character is, for starters, he's a military veteran. His occupation was disabling bombs on the battlefield, so he's likely dealing with pretty major PTSD, not to mention being a child when he lost his mom in a terrible, just watch the beginning of Godzilla 2014 to see how bad it was, but in something that would go on to divide and fracture his personal relationship with his father. There's a reason why Aaron Taylor Johnson played him the way he did. And to me, Ford Brody embodies like the everyman. I actually think he's a great human character, and I like a lot of his scenes. And of course, we get to see some of familiar faces that would go on to be more in the that would play more of a role in the Monsterverse. And also, I love this shot of Ken Watanabe and Serizawa. It just, I mean, the look on his face just says it all. Before continuing, I just want to say, the character Admiral Stentz here, I really love what they did with him. It would have been very easy to make him kind of like a stereotypical violent, warmongering military character, but no, this guy is so sensible. He really takes his job seriously, and he values not only human life, but like his allegiance to the people. He swore an oath to protect the American people, and the way he and Serizawa interacted, I kind of feel like I really do wish we got to see more of these two interact and their characters progress from here on out. I will also say that Elizabeth Olsen's character in this movie deserves so much better. I do believe this is right before she became more and more famous due to her involvement in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I've long thought that the best thing they could have done for her character, there's something they could have done that wouldn't have involved like massive screen revisions, or even like going back and reshoots, making expensive reshoots. There's something they could have done that would have greatly improved her character, because she plays not only a mother, a wife, and a nurse. Her entire character pretty much was contingent on basically trying to support Ford. Oh my God, monsters are coming to town. I gotta get my kid out of here. I feel I'm a little bit indecisive. Nothing against Elizabeth Olsen, by the way. She does a fantastic job. It's just that they could have improved her character, and the way they could have done it is how in the film's climax we see Godzilla get like we see a skyscraper bury him alive, and the scene cuts to Elizabeth Olsen's character huddling in like a shelter and barely surviving, debris and rubble falling down. And I think what I would have done differently is, it's very simple. I would have had her attempting to save somebody's life during that shot, because to me, she needed more to do, man. And I think that would have been a great to see that, like her husband Ford, who's putting his life on the line, not only for his family, but for the human race. It would have been great to see her kind of mirror that, trying to, put her own safety at risk, put her own life at risk by trying to save another person in need. And that would have been great. Every scene of Godzilla in this, I get his screen time is not the best in the world, but every time he shows up, guys, it's quality over quantity. Every single scene in this movie where Godzilla makes an appearance is scene stealing. The airport scene, when he reveals his face to the world, amazing. The shot of him receiving a U.S. Navy being accompanied by the United States Navy is great. And I do want to include this shot of the Muto because, again, so much about this movie. Okay, so Mike Dougherty mentioned that he was inspired by Renaissance paintings for Godzilla King of the Monsters. But for this movie, every single shot looks like it literally leaps out of the pages of concept art, of storyboards. They look like paintings come to life. I love how this movie is compositive. I love so much about it. It's just so extremely well done. I do think, regarding real quick Godzilla's screen time, one big thing I would have changed would have been having Godzilla and the male Mutos fight actually shown when they fought in Honolulu, Hawaii. Sorry, I'm struggling with speaking right now. 2.5 hours into the stream. I'm dying, but I'm going to do my best to finish off strong here. One thing that I would have done differently, of course, is I would have had that fight play out for like 2.5 minutes. Instead of, as soon as Godzilla roars at the Muto, it cuts, and then, we just see the aftermath on some TV news coverage. I kind of feel like, because this movie gets a bad rep for cutting away from the action every time, kind of like here, Godzilla and the Muto are about to close off as our characters, as the humans are fleeing towards underground bunkers. And the scene then cuts away, but unlike the previous scene, where it cuts to just a news feed of the aftermath to give a more grounded, realistic approach, I would have had Godzilla and the male Muto fight, because here this cutaway makes sense. It really built a lot of anticipation, a lot of suspense. Whereas the first time around, it was just, there were groans everywhere in my theater, and every single time I went to see this movie in theaters, people would groan, and understandably so. Don't cut away from the monster action. Give us a little bit something, and then later you could really build up the tension. But these are just phenomenal shots. Godzilla here looks like a true force of nature. He still is this sort of like absolute massive presence. I love this shot, for example, right here, because we would later find out, yeah, this is Godzilla, but that's just a tiny little part of him. But he still looks massive here, right? And of course, we find out later it's actually his tail. But you'd be forgiven for thinking this could be just Godzilla standing up out of the water. It's just that his back is facing us. Until, yeah, it becomes pretty clear in just a sec that this is his tail. But I love shots like this. Absolutely inspiring. It's gone a long way in just shaping my own personal approach when it comes to my own little movies as well. And I owe a lot to Gareth Edwards here in how these shots are composited. The movie, of course, unfortunately is plagued by rather not so stellar home release. It's definitely hard to see. The initial DVD Blu-ray for this movie, abysmal. More later, they've improved, of course, depending on like what kind of TV you have or something. But yeah, this movie's home release is plagued by the fact that the night scenes are extremely hard to see, and which is unfortunate because this movie is a visual spectacle. It's a feast on the eyes. And again, I love how every shot here, it kind of feels like a framing from, like it's a POV from a human. The angle here we have two soldiers who are watching these two gods go to war, and it doesn't feel like, you know, this is an unrealistic framing. This really does feel like we are there, we are immersed, and we're witnessing this for ourselves, and it's just phenomenal. God, just look at this shot. Godzilla's atomic breath scene, of course, is a scene stealer. Absolutely love what they did here. Oh man, it's just... I also love Godzilla's depiction here. He is a seasoned vet. He's like an elder warrior. He's been fighting for millions of years, and it shows. I mean, future installments would eventually have Godzilla becoming more pumped up, more supercharged, and he would actually have more life in him. But I really do love how Godzilla just feels kind of like an old samurai in this. And here's another shot, but to the left we could have the same thing I just showed, but here you can see the Muto's body too. I thought that was pretty nice. Speaking of the Mutos, I really did like them. I mean, as far as antagonists go, like these things, they don't really notice people, and they're just trying to, like, you know, procreate, continue their species. I mean, as far as motivations go, you know, it's not bad. It's just, you know, it comes with a massive caveat, like the continuation of their species. You know, for the Mutos to thrive, it would come at the expense of civilization, you know. Evolved Godzilla, good to see you. Still upset Joe Brody died. Yeah, big mistake. I agree. Ford is a boring plank of wood. He should have died instead. Well, I disagree with that. I think both father and son should have survived, and I think there's so much more that could have been done with them, but to each their own. I never got the scene why Godzilla stood out of the water. He could have swam under the bridge. Why did he bother to get out in the middle of the bridge? Yeah, that's a fair point. Obviously, I think, you know, I think for dramatic purposes. I mean, Godzilla going through the Golden Gate Bridge looked awesome, but and such. But yeah, Godzilla, you should have just swam under, man. It would have saved us so much trouble. Anyway, the Mutos. This shot here of the Mutos, of the male Muto diving down to retrieve the nuclear bomb, and these soldiers who are suddenly seeing this thing coming down from the sky. It's so cool and scary. Yeah, and the scene of the female Muto realizing her babies have been absolutely vaporized by the humans, and the sounds she makes, the sounds of anguish. It's just, you know, despite our differences, maybe we are not so different, the Mutos and the human race. Or, you know, it's that whole theme of how, like, are we so different, the humans and the monsters? If we were able to look past our differences and see what we have in common. But yeah, I cannot forget to mention the iconic kiss of death. The way Godzilla finishes off the female Muto is just icing on the cake. It's done extremely well. This rightfully generated massive applause in my theater. It's still one of the best moments in the Monsterverse by far. And you know what? I love the conclusion here. As humans race to rebuild, As it was alluded to earlier in the movie, when a young Ford Brody would step out, walk across his room, we see soldiers, toy soldiers and toys and stuff, but he's kind of like the Titan. That kind of would symbolic how the Titans like Godzilla, how they see the humans as well. But here we see like the aftermath of a war of gods. Godzilla is down, he could very well be dead, but here the humans are doing everything they can to restore civilization. They're scrambling, they're trying to find other people who are buried, and then Godzilla wakes, he comes back to life, and I just love the entire score. I love how this is shot. Serizawa's expression, again, I just want you guys to see Ken Watanabe just reacting to seeing Godzilla come back to life, and kind of like in many respects confirm his belief that Godzilla is a protector. He is a guardian of the planet, and it just shows in this entire final sequence, and I love it. I love it so much. Godzilla rises out of the ashes of a brutal battle, and everything about this entire part just gives me goosebumps. I freaking love it. I love how it's the shots, how they're composited. Again, how I messed up on that word. Forgive me. This is the first time I've learned how to speak. If you look closely, you can even see the Muto blood on him. This is such a, you could see him. It's just such a great sequence. And of course, the question of whether or not Godzilla is the savior of our city. Such a fantastic conclusion. Now, even though my initial viewing was a bit disappointing, I don't really like when I first saw this movie, I didn't like it because I thought, the trailers were misleading. I thought Godzilla was going to be this, destructive force, but instead he's actually kind of like a hero. Now, in hindsight, and having seen this movie and judging it on its own merits, I really love it. I love this shot as well because I stood at this point before, so I know exactly. It's really cool to be able to like visit the on-scene locations where some of where the movie takes place, and I love this shot as well. And finally, Godzilla disappearing into the scene, which brings an end to the movie. A shot like this, I can't help but think like millions of years ago, something like this would have been a common occurrence. But now Godzilla, a relic, like the last, as far as we know, the last member of his species. It's such a fitting way. It's such a perfect ending. But before I end my Godzilla 2014 analysis, I want to talk about my favorite scene in the entire movie. At this point, Godzilla's been fighting the Mutos. He's exhausted. Ford Brody, a soldier, a veteran, who's just trying to reunite with his family. He's trying to restore order, bring back some semblance of like normalcy to the world. He's been traveling the world as well, fighting in one battle after another. And in this shot, I feel like Godzilla takes notice. He stares at Ford. Ford stares at Godzilla, and the two just feel this sort of deep connection. I feel like here, these two are both veterans. They're both warriors. And they're like, I'd say, one soul in two different bodies, living two different lives. But again, kind of like one of the main overarching themes of the Monsterverse is duality, and the two here share a moment that I thought was so profound. I love it. It's this sort of thing is what it gets me excited. I love these sort of movies. I love scenes like this. It's just such a powerful moment. Folks, we're nearing the 3-hour mark, and just in time, because we have my number one movie in this Monsterverse ranking, the number one movie, my favorite movie in the entire Monsterverse. As of right now, who knows, Godzilla Kong Supernova could take the top spot. And again, I've mentioned in the past, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla 2014. The movies in the top 3 do tend to every once in a while shuffle and become my number 1. But the mainstay, the film that to me, in my opinion, is the best Monsterverse film yet, is Kong Skull Island, released in 2017, directed by Jordan Vogt Roberts. I think it's such a this movie is so damn good. Everything about this movie is just it holds up to this day. I love everything about it, from the camera work to the production angle to the human element to how Kong is depicted to the post-Vietnam War aesthetics. This shot of Kong is just a masterpiece. You could say this entire sequence alone of Kong fighting the choppers is worth the price of admission alone. Kong in this movie is so damn good, and I love that this is the beginning of Kong's journey through the Monsterverse. I want to share this quick shot right here. Kong just crunching the helicopter, and I love this shot because I get strong Evangelion vibes from this alone. Kong confronting it's been a while, nearly 3 hours. I'm beginning to die here. Oh gosh, I'm gonna take a sip of water. Hang on, guys. Sorry, I had to recharge the tank. Woo! But yes, Kong confronting Samuel Jackson's character here is just so damn perfect, and it just kicks off Samuel Jackson's entire he plays Colonel Packard, and his entire vendetta against Kong is told beautifully here. I'm going to touch upon more on the human characters here shortly, but I just want to say, like, just Kong, from his mannerisms, his framing, how he expresses himself. Here he's in pain, which goes to show that despite being a monster, a king, he's not a god, not yet anyway. He's no Godzilla, but that's kind of what makes him relatable, right? Here he's just grimacing in pain from the helicopter blades after they hurt him. I love this shot of Kong's blood, just a handprint on one of the side of the mountains in Skull Island. It's just there's so much powerful thematic moments. And of course here, Kong eating squid was really great. Okay, so the human characters here, I gotta say, the humans are in this movie are phenomenal. You got an all-star cast. I already mentioned Samuel Jackson here, but we also have Tom Hiddleston leading the charge as well. We got Brie Larson, and we got so many other great characters. I'm going to talk about my favorite, arguably the best human character in the entire Monsterverse, Hank Marlowe. Oh God, I love this man so much. He has the best character arc, everything about him. You can't help but root for him, cheer him on, because unquestionably, I just love how this man went from fighting in a war to learning how to respect, a man who was once seen as his bitter enemy, to seeing each other as friends, as brothers, to then honoring the passing of his friend many years later, to kind of helping the characters in this find on their own path, not only surviving Skull Island, but on their journey to becoming ideally better human beings. And I just love Marlowe's entire closure. I love how he doesn't die on Skull Island. You know, there's no big sacrifice scene, which would have been expected in some respects. I mean, you kind of feel like that was going to, you know, they probably thought about doing it. But I love the fact that he survives and he would finally go on, be reunited with his family, who, you know, his wife long thought he was dead. He never knew his son, who's now a man, and it's just one of the most powerful moments. Just one of the best humans in the whole Monsterverse, and everything about him I just love. Here's another great shot of Kong and the Iwi. This film it's amazing how much like world building Kong Skull Island you know does, and you know how pivotal it's proven towards the Monsterverse expanded lore. The Iwi here, just a great idea. Like, I love how they've completely reimagined Skull Island's natives into an entire group of people, a culture that is still so mysterious to this day, but intriguing nonetheless. There's so much going on, and I love the fact that, you know, their involvement would go on to, you know, give us Gia and expand more, like their involvement, their history, not only on Skull Island, but you could trace their lineage and legacy back to the Hollow Earth and the development of human history. Like, it's just so good. John Goodman's character as well, Bill Randa, is just marvelous. I love this shot as well because, you know, he says something like, "Mark my words, there will never be a more crazy time in Washington." Well, buddy, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Considering this took place during the 1970s, and yeah, a lot of things were happening. A lot of things, yeah. The 2020s have would like you to hold their beer. Brie Larson's character in this is so great too. She's a war journalist, a photographer. She's captured so much, and I would say part of what puts her at odds with Samuel Jackson's character is that he believes that people like her are the reason why they lost the war, but she was like, people like her, war photographers, by the way, are super vital in how they can really help the rest of the world really see just how terrible war is, for starters, and the harm, the trauma, the loss of life. Like, it's all preventable. It doesn't need to happen. And here, of course, I think Brie Larson does a fantastic job. She's an amazing actress. Her character is just pretty solid in this. And of course, my man Tom Hiddleston. I mean, we both share the name Tom, so that's almost all you need to know. But no, I really like how I really like what they did with Tom Hiddleston in this movie. I do think it would have been cool to see him more. I remember this interesting fan theory years back about how people thought Charles Dance's character in Godzilla King of the Monsters is an older version of Tom Hiddleston's character here, but that's not the case. Nope. That would have been cool, but nope. Highly unlikely we're ever going to see him again, but, you know, I wouldn't mind to see him show up maybe as an older character in Monarch Legacy of Monsters. But let's talk about the two best human characters in the entire movie. Samuel Jackson's character, Colonel Packard. Here's a man who, you know, it's the final days of Vietnam. The war is ending. He and his boys are heading back home. They get a job. And this man, in certain respects, never really, like, I could never, even if, you know, like, he never received this assignment to go to Skull Island and help the main characters, or help John Goodman's character, who of course had ulterior motives, who's there to prove that monsters exist. We'll get to that. But I can't help but figure, I cannot imagine Samuel Jackson's character here ever really accepting peace. This man seemed to, like, had been, like, I cannot see this man ever really being a man out of war. It seems to be the only thing his entire life revolves around. So of course, after landing on Skull Island, and surprise, monsters exist, and unfortunately, Samuel Jackson's character lost, his character lost a lot of his men. His entire character motivation comes down to vengeance, hunting Kong down, and you can't help but understand where he's coming from. I don't know if you root for him, maybe at some times, like if you were there, maybe, but it does eventually reach a point where his vendetta, his vengeance, I'm going to honor the lives of my men. I mean, he's kept their dog tags for a reason, but then it becomes less about like you're in it to avenge them, and more you're now putting everyone's life in mortal danger for your vendetta against Kong, who is, by the way, who was only defending himself. And there are way greater themes about this that I may not have time to truly touch upon here, but I do think that is exceptional. Of course, this scene between the two of them is just chef's kiss. Like, it's really great. Here, John Goodman's character comes clean. Monsters exist. He's here to prove it, and this would eventually lay the groundwork for Monarch in the future. And of course, Samuel Jackson does not like the fact that he was being used. He was being lied to. So now the truth is out. This is a very strong scene from two seasoned vets, two amazing actors who just seamlessly give such an incredible performance. Kong is amazing in this. He is not quite at the towering presence he'll be in Godzilla vs. Kong, but we can absolutely see why he's the king of this island. And it's so funny how Zuko is actually a lot larger now than Kong was back during the 1970s. You look at this and you see, like, Kong is like a little more than 100 feet tall, but Zuko now, who again is like a midget compared to Kong, adult Kong, is still so much bigger than the Kong we see in this photo. That's pretty insane to me. But I love the framing of this shot. And finally, I'd say my favorite shot in the entire movie is Kong looking up at the Northern Lights. This is such a beautiful sequence. You know what? I take back what I said. If you made an entire movie of just something like this, completely from Kong's POV, and it's just him looking up at the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis, I am sold. Give that to me now. Or maybe I should just, make a whole meditation video of Kong doing just that. So, another cool shot of Kong here. This is one of my favorites. Sorry I had to condense it though. There's so much. I mean, this is the actual framing of this is a lot wider, but I just want to say this is just one of my favorite shots in the entire movie as well. Almost at every point Kong shows up, you could just freeze frame and it looks phenomenal. I love Kong's expressions in this movie. I mean, his expressions in Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire are great, but this really does. It's really, I feel like there's more emotion here, because here Kong literally set ablaze and he just stomps on this guy. It's just so, the ferocity, it's the rage. It's so good. And of course, here's this shot of a skull crawler sneaking up behind Kong. Let's talk about the skull crawlers. Imagine being in the woods and turning around and you see this menacing creature just staring at you, and then you blink and then this is the last thing you ever see. The skull crawlers are great, filthy, terrifying antagonists. And truly terrifying. They are scary too. These are things that, I mean, just look at Brie Larson's face here. Her reaction. Obviously, she had no idea that, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the director held up a picture of the skullcrawler and went like, Brie, this is what's chasing you. And I feel like the fear on her face is well warranted. What makes the skull crawlers truly terrifying is the fact that they hunt humans. Unlike the Mutos or King Ghidorah, like the skull crawlers will we'll single out the people. We'll single you out and we'll gobble you up. And it's a horrendous death. This shot right here as well. I mean, God, the main Skull Devil here, the big one, it's, you know, for a brief second, despite how terrifying it looks, it knew that this guy was trying to lure it into a trap. And then instead of this poor guy getting his, you know, a sacrifice, ending his life, but maybe taking this giant monster down with him, the skull crawler would then like just whack him with his tail and send him flying into a mountain where he blew up. Like, it just like, ugh. Just look at this shot though. This looks pretty damn awesome. I love this stuff. Now also imagine, like, even if you have like you're manning a 50 cal, you got like some major firepower in your corner, but then you see something like this coming at you. Like, oh my God, how do you not like just, I don't know. I feel like my soul would leave my body. I would just, astral projection, it may not be real, but it's going to be real in a second because I'm out of here. And I love the shot of Kong coming out of nowhere to save the people. And there's this other shot, I forgot to include it, but there's this shot where right before Kong and the Skullcrawler have their big final battle, Kong takes a moment and looks over at the humans just to make sure that they get out of harm's way. I love little tiny minor details like that, but that goes a long way in establishing Kong's character. But this battle is just intense. Just look at this shot. God, just the pain on Kong's face. It's just so crazy. Ugh. And also take a look at the intensity in Kong's eyes. So much emotion, so much rage. I just love it. I love it so much. Kong in this movie is done to perfection. And I apologize for the image quality on this one, but one thing that I wish the Monsterverse would do more, and we kind of have started seeing that more now, fortunately, is more daytime battles between the monsters. This entire shot, this entire final battle sequence is exquisite, but shots like this are just so awe-inspiring. I mean, it's to die for, guys. I just fall in love with this sort of shit. Like, this is just, I'm getting lost for words, and it's not because I've been streaming for more than 3 hours and I'm losing my voice. It's because I really do genuinely love this sort of thing. It's just incredible. Oh, Evolve Godzilla, I'm sorry I didn't see your comment from before. I would have responded it sooner. You make a comment regarding Ford from Godzilla 2014. Let me read it now. What does Ford even think about Godzilla? We know he hates the Mutos, but he never celebrates their demise. They killed his parents, but he never even mentions Godzilla. This is a fair criticism of the movie. The novel does kind of like go more into Ford's head, and he is kind of like actually grateful to Godzilla for avenging his parents in a way by killing the male Muto. But yeah, that's a fair criticism. As far as what does Ford even think about Godzilla, we know earlier when Serizawa was showing him slides of Godzilla, Ford sees him as a monster, no better than, you know, the Mutos. But later, I kind of feel like that shot here, I'm going to go back to it real quick, just so we understand each other. This shot right here, I think, made Ford realize that there's more to this creature than meets the eye. Now in this shot, I feel like more than ever Ford realizes Godzilla is he's no mere monster. He's not just the king of the monsters. He is a force for good. He is an ally Ford can actually trust. And indeed, when Godzilla comes and saves him, whether Godzilla did it on purpose or not to save Ford, you know, that I'll leave it to your interpretation. That's left to the viewer to decide. I think Ford, in the end, would say he's truly grateful for Godzilla. So, you know, he may not have mentioned Godzilla, but I think he, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So when the way he, I think you could tell just by looking at his face that he is, he probably sees Godzilla a lot in a more favorable way, similar to how Serizawa sees him. But anyway, back to Skull Island here. Kong, Skull Island, Kong. Oh man, I love this shot. It's so terrifying. So it sends a chill up my spine. Again, the skull crawler is such a terrifying enemy. And I do love how here Kong, he's wrapped up in chains, similarly to how he was, he was in chains from the 1933 original classic, and indeed in other King Kong movies, Kong would go on to be in chains as well. But unlike in those movies where breaking free, trying to, break free of these chains of bondage usually resulted in Kong's painful demise, in this movie, Kong rises above, he breaks his chains, even uses them as a weapon. He kind of it's similarly to how like Serizawa found a new, he took he took the nuclear bomb and found a new way of using it, repurposed it in a way to achieve some good. Similarly here, Kong uses his chains, but I would say metaphorically in a way better way. It repurposes these chains as a means to take down his enemy and save the lives of his human companions. And of course, this shot right here is just so breathtaking. It's so amazing. In this shot, Kong is holding Brie Larson's character. She, the skull crawler is trying to eat him. So it really is such a great framing. I love how Kong is risking his life for the humans, and it does go show a long way. And I'm gonna real quick jump back to the 2017 Skull Island here, where it concerns Kong and how the whole point and what his human companion during this entire show run was trying to emphasize is that, it's all about empathy at the end of the day. It's about compassion. It's about fighting for others. And here, Kong is doing just that. And I think at this point, Kong goes from being the king of Skull Island to becoming the hero of the Monsterverse. This is the beginning of that hero's journey. And we can't forget the post-credits scene that would lead to the Monsterverse expanding, becoming the cinematic universe we know and love it today. I had chills in the theaters when, we see these cave paintings of Godzilla and King Ghidorah throwing down. The scene cuts to black. We hear Godzilla's iconic, legendary roar. Nothing quite like it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up my Monsterverse ranking. Once again, I have chosen Kong Skull Island as my #1 pick, but obviously I'd like to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think. What's your Monsterverse ranking? What's your favorite? Did you like my ranking list? What did you agree or disagree with? Please let me know. I would love to hear from you. You can find me more on Instagram.com/Kaijutopia. I share my toy photography and my screen grabs from my stop motion movies there. If you haven't yet, and you're feeling particularly charitable, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't yet. My name is Tom. I'm a stop motion artist. I love making epic kaiju animations, bringing the Godzilla multiverse to life. I love doing comic book breakdown videos, power rankings, whether it's monsters, motion, and mayhem. If that's what you're looking for, you've come to the right place. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for watching. What a long stream. Holy moly, it's been something. It's been an adventure. I'll tell you what. But now, all good things have to come to an end, right? Well, maybe for this stream, but I'll be catching you all later.